money, I'll give it to everybody. Even Donald Trump.
Yeah, Donald told me.
So how's your sister? Do you have a
Fine,
business
thank
card?
you. She was
I don't
off
have
this
one
week.
on me.
Why? Barbara?
Yeah, just,
Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, Village of Chestnut Ridge, Thursday, October 13th, 2011.
fine, fine.
FOND?
Visiting in
Sure,
Jersey for
what
a
is
few
it?
days. She goes to college in
Thank you.
Florida.
That's in New
And
York
she's
or
up
Jersey?
visiting
It's in
her dad,
Jersey.
So we're gonna go down and see her
Oh, that's
tomorrow
good.
in the oranges, so it worked out well.
I know the name Fond. Is there an
Barry
attorney?
Fond?
He's an attorney?
No, he's court reporter.
Boy, why don't we
How
know
are you
the name
doing?
Fond? Fort Lee?
No, Westwood.
Gee, okay. Maybe
You
it's
doing
something
okay?
else.
Yeah, you been to the restaurant?
Oh, yes, yes.
Again?
Not again, no, Barbara was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw her there.
Yeah, I forget who she went with, but
You been?
Well,
Well.
I'm here for you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
good for
I have a question. How, if an application is withdrawn, how do you address it? Good question. Good question. Why is it two machines? Hey, buddy.
Come on.
Hello. How are you?
I wonder if you have to create a 3D movie now.
I hope so. I called him. Yesterday we spoke, reminded him, he said he forgot.
Not good.
He's a busy guy. How are you? How's everything?
Hi, Dominic, how are you?
How you doing, Don?
Hey,
How you been?
good, hey, John.
Enjoying the economy like everybody else?
My girlfriend Stacy.
Hi.
John, he helped us out when my dad died. He was one of the few survivors that called it on it.
Things still going well for you?
Eh,
Little-
it's real slow. It's been slow for 3 years now. Since Richie died.
Hey.
Yeah.
Since then, it's never recovered. I mean, that's everybody too, it's not just.
No,
us.
no. I mean,
I'm barely holding on to my 5. I'm a blue.
yeah, Monroe basically, our office up there, there's 5 of us up there, that's it. Around this office, we're still holding a lot better than we were about starting 38 down there.
And it hasn't seemed to get better at all.
I think this winter's gonna be a lot worse,
Oh, yeah.
because all I'm doing right now is wrapping more stuff up
Exactly.
and burning the storage.
I'm the same way.
No.
I'm actually, I'm so slow that I've actually signed up for this, plow company. I'm serious. I literally go down in New York City, plow and there's over 6 inches of snow.
Okay.
$1,000 every time I go down there.
Yeah.
So, it's money, you know? But, I mean, I don't stop go to work anyway, when it snows. So, for me, they call you to get down there 2 hours before the storm. You know, you sit, wait for the storm, you see 12 hours minimum. So, $75 an hour.
What are you driving?
Chevy,
Over your truck?
yeah, truck and plow.
And where are you doing it?
In the city.
Okay, but where? From New York City?
Yeah, well, no, it's for subcontractor here in the city.
And what are you doing, Little Streets?
Just little streets, just to help the.
You didn't do Queens then, you got
No, I'm gonna do
your
Bronx, and stay up in the Bronx.
Those poor people who had, they get plowed for a week.
They
Well,
do.
that's why they hired this company, because they're looking
Then
for.
still-
The problem is there's nowhere to put the snow, because there's cars on both sides, you really have to go in with almost like one of those, snow melting machines or a backhoe or something. Where you gonna put it? You can't put it on the side,
Yes,
it's gonna
they
get.
told us not to worry about the cars on the side of the road, just clear the streets and help the MTA guys. Because they can't keep up.
Not enough room.
Last year, there was 4 such storms that could have been
Yeah,
called upon.
but the one after Christmas was 26 inches, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, there he is.
It is.
Doctor. Oh, yeah. Here, come and sign this for yourself. So this is the affidavit of posting. Hold on. So when you put these up? Um, 10 days prior to the date. So the date is November 3rd. So maybe I'll call that.
That's your plan.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all.
No, you didn't leave them up for a month? You want that? Let's look at the-
12 days.
Hey, don't worry about it, I'll fill that in.
You sign it as.
Here, this is yours. I don't know why they give you 4, I don't know what they gonna put 4 at the time. Okay, November 3rd, so you go back 10 days.
Right.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, why don't you put it on the 21st? You're kidding me, right? Don't you have a BlackBerry or something? I don't have one. I don't have it. I have an old phone. What's the phone I got?
What was your son yesterday?
Nothing, I would never know.
They were what?
Evening?
I keep forgetting to go to makeup before I come in. Hello, Gail, thanks for doing this.
Could be bringing that over.
That's not mine. Oh, Steve. We're down a chair. Now, can you pass like this?
Yeah, I told you that.
Don't put this like bar, you came for us.
Just wait a little bit, there we go.
We'll do it. Sorry.
Don't make me. Well, Mr. Levine, I thought you were gonna be away.
I canceled my plans.
What?
I canceled my plans. Just to be here with you.
Yes, sure, sir. That's your road.
You getting to be part of the family.
I see Mr. canceled his plans too.
How are you? Yeah. Just postponed it 2 days.
Sorry.
Yeah. Because before I bought the property, I was purchased.
Yes. Not the first one. 2 and 3. Yes.
Sure, I think you should put the AC on before it gets humid. I think you should put the AC on before it gets humid.
I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm always warm.
Anybody else want to do? Whatever you like.
No,
I'll get blamed
I
for enough
vote,
things.
I vote for the AC.
Ah,
Good, but I'm hot here.
anyone have a opinion? That's the key.
All right, Gil.
I think that's really
Yeah, actually, I don't understand. Literally, that's all.
Yes.
She's taking the 2 and 3, so. I just put it on here for Mr. Lippers, please, so I don't know if she's taking that one.
Well, you're working for somebody else.
Yeah, I'm working for Mr. Lippers, so I don't.
Oh, you're working with Mr. Whipper?
Yes,
That's 3.
that's the.
Just stay. Okay.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know if you refer.
Okay, you understand what we need to do?
Yeah, I just think we have it on recorder, so I know. That's fine.
No, no, you stay.
No, no.
Okay, okay, I just didn't know.
We'll do number 2 and then those.
I'm doing 2 and 3?
Fine. Okay. So the zoning board of appeals meeting for the village of Chestnut Ridge. Today is October 13th, it's 8:07, and we're convening the meeting. We're going to take the first item of business first. Not necessarily a unique state of affairs for us. And that would be Mr. Landscape. Is the petitioner here? Now, we recognize that the village board has changed the zoning law requiring sign size.
Correct.
All right? Are we now in compliance?
Yes.
So Mr. Landscape is in compliance with the sign, we are only now talking about your setback.
Correct.
Okay.
One variance.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you remember, it's been a while ago, but we put the sign up.
Yes, I remember that.
We put the sign up as requested in the location, we left it there till everybody saw it, okay? As you remember, it was substantially back. We, as requested by the board, recalculated the site distances, and maybe you could call out the site distances.
Well, I will say also, it was substantially back, so we got an idea of where it was in the back. However, it didn't have to be that far south as it was, I don't think. You had it not in the same line as the existing sign. You did have it back, you showed us where the line would be, which is fine, which is what we wanted.
But if we had.
But you did have it further south of the existing sign.
That was
Was
to
there a reason you did that?
optimize, that was to optimize the angles to get as much sight distance as we could. If we moved it up or back, it would pretty much vitiate one sight distance completely.
I would have thought that a little further north would have hurt,
Well,
but
we have-
that's fine.
You have all these,
Well, you could cut down that little weeping willow, whatever that is called, that plant, I don't know, I'm not good on plants.
well, that's not ours.
I thought that was yours, try to.
No. No,
That weeping
belongs to-
plant is not yours.
No.
It's on the road.
That belongs to Biosphere.
North side?
Yeah, that's Biosphere. Yeah, that's biosphere.
Blattless cedar.
And then as you remember, there's a
What's it
separate-
called?
A weeping blattless cedar?
That was my third guess. Really? Okay. If you remember, there's a house here also,
Yes.
and it's completely filled with brush in the front. So that cuts down. So if we moved it back here, I just don't think you'd be able to see it at all. So we put it in the location where, when we did the location, we had Mr. Johnson. We had Mr. Johnson there, and we went out to the road and we kind of like, you know, said, okay, move a little bit to the right, move a little bit to the left to make it the maximum sight distance from both sides. Because if we move it up or down, you're gonna do away with one of the sight distances completely.
My name's Steve Sporacco, I'm an engineer.
Go to the- wait a second. Do you want your engineer to testify?
Sure. He'll answer any technical questions.
Would you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record. Could be a business address.
Sure. Steve Sporacco, 26 Fireman's Memorial Drive, Pomona, New York.
Okay. You were about to say something on the road to us.
Yes, my employees, Bill Johnson, Fred Reichel, were out there. They played around with the sign location, all these locations up there. As Jim had noted, if you put the sign over here, you had issues with that tree. And
And the
since it was
brush.
the brush, and we have no control over here. Put it down here further, there's issues this way with sight distance. See, the further you bring this down, the less sight distance you have. There's also obstructions over here. So, when you look at the two, this is really a better location for the sign, for sight distance,
This being what?
the existing location, versus the sign we moved around in different places to look and try and optimize the best spot. And this turned out to be the
Well,
best
if I'm
spot.
reading it now, this temporary, where it says temporary, I'm sorry we only have one copy of this, so everybody on the zoning board, they want to lean over, and put it over here. This temporary, this is where the sign should be, is that what you're saying?
That's
That's the
where-
optimized position of the sign, consistent with the setback.
Yes,
That's where they put the other sign.
right, that's where the temporary sign
Right.
is.
So I note that it is, and the existing sign is over here,
Right,
Correct.
north of that. So I note that the sight distance for both, from the north side, is about the same.
yeah, the north side, the existing sign has 208 feet, and the temporary sign was 220. However, on the south side, it was far better with the existing side, 184 versus 110. And the optimized spot. Again, they played with every location they could within reason.
It's funny, I thought it was better seen going north on the roadway because you're on the opposite side than it was going south.
No, because this is all trees on Gould's property.
I'm just saying what I saw. And obviously, the further north you move it, you're gonna cut down on the sideline going south, that increase the sideline going north. You think that's the optimum position, in terms of, sign placement, keeping in consideration required setback?
Well, I think this existing sign is better, but yes, as far as legal sign,
I said
yes.
assuming a legal sign,
Right, yes,
legal being setback.
yes,
That, in your judgment, is the
Yes.
best position for it to be.
yes.
Anybody else?
And where it is, it has a 0 setback off the highway line.
Correct. Which DOT endorsed.
I would say endorsed. DOT said they will not make you move it. There's quite a difference between endorsing and.
But they didn't have any problem with it.
But county planning had problems with it.
I reviewed the site plan for the above, said, while the sign does not have the standard 15-foot clearance from right, there is adequate clearance from the travel way and it's out of the clear zone. We were not required the sign to be moved.
That's right.
No
They were
further.
not required to remove.
Right.
All they're saying is it's far enough away so that no car's gonna hit it, part of the right of way.
Right. but I don't know how long you've been doing this, but I've only been doing it 26 years. I've never seen this letter. And I can tell you right now, I'll bet $1 of donuts that Doris has never seen this letter before. The truth of the matter is, the sign can stay right where it is, it's fine. This sight distance coming up here is horrible. I mean, if you really looked at it when you drove by, you can't see the sign back there. You just can't. It makes it a danger.
If they wanted to widen the road, would you concede to move the sign?
If they wanted to widen the road, sure. Not in your lifetime, not in mine, sir. We can't even build the bridge. They're not gonna widen the road. I just want you to know that. Not in your grandchildren's lifetime. I think they would do 59 before they would do, Chestnut Ridge Road. But the answer is yes.
I'm trying to figure out who this variance is on here.
By the way, you all should have gotten a copy of this
Yeah, I
from
think.
Veronica at the last meeting.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to see it on here.
Oh, it wouldn't be on the vote table.
Should have been the front setback. The front yard. Weird, oh, weird.
It's in the application. We didn't note it on the vote table, we just didn't.
Well, you noted it as an asterisk, I'm trying to figure out where that asterisk is. Not on the vote table.
Where are we, Steve? Here, look.
You got it on one of the earlier maps?
It says on this map, it says variance for this,
Different map.
not for this one.
I know, it has an asterisk, you wanna point out where the asterisk is?
There's no asterisk.
There's a single asterisk showing a foot,
It's just a
I'm
note.
trying to figure out what the note is.
It's just a note.
It's not usually the way you do it.
There's no referral on here to zero.
See, according to this, you're
But it's in the
beyond the
application.
designated street sign, street line even now. So you not only have, the variance requested is beyond the street line.
7 feet.
You're into the street line. Well, it's half the
Correct.
sign.
Correct.
It's virtually half the sign is in the
Correct.
street line.
Correct.
So you not only have 0, you got a -7.
Right, but as you drive by, there's no way
You know
that
what?
you can consider that sign anywhere near the street.
What is this 11 for? About 11 feet from the street line?
That's correct.
I mean, this, I gotta be honest with you,
I got it.
this sign back here is useless. It's really useless. I mean, it's
It's
just,
not, that's a side setback.
That's the proposed 11.
That's what it looks like. It's not proposed 11, it's not
The
proposed.
setback usually measured to the building, the yard should say zero.
It should have said, right here, it should have said 0. For
I
some-
think the application though, unless
the
I'm
application
mistaken,
is -7.
so that's correct. The map will be amended to reflect -7, if the board chooses to put it that way.
And you would be required, how much?
Well, it's zero, I mean, you
You're
can't put
0.
negative.
If it was legal, you'd be 11 feet back from the street line?
It's zero would be the actual technical number, because you can't go negative for variances.
Yeah,
It's zero.
I understand that. I understand that.
I'm sorry. then
You
I
put
don't
this sign
understand.
here.
That's the temporary sign,
I understand. How many feet back?
11 feet. I'm not sure a sign, actually, I don't know because I wasn't privy to it earlier board meetings. Is the sign?
10. So you could actually move this up a
A
foot.
sign is 10 feet.
So you
That's
could
the
have moved
minimum.
this up a foot. It says 11. You could move it up a foot.
Okay.
And
It's
increase the
about the
size.
same number.
Well, it does increase it a little.
Maybe.
Mr. Miller.
All right, I got nothing. Anybody else?
Well, I would like to come up, I would like to explain how does it come to the conclusion that that's the best point where to actually put, what kind of machinery are you using to do that?
Transit.
And how does that work when you're coming
Actually,
down this
total
way and when you're coming down this way? How do you,
You can explain that.
yeah,
It's a total station. We take measurements, we have a stone with a prism, and we tried different locations. That's what we did for this. We tested a number of locations, like every 3 feet, 4 feet, until we got the optimal spot on both sides.
But if you put your location, let's say here, a little bit more to the left, a little bit more to the right,
That's not what you measure.
how much? Hmm?
You have to measure it from this location, which is where the driver would sit. See where the arrow goes? That's about where the driver sits. Same thing over here on this side. See the line, the turn over here? That's where the driver sits. That's where you measure it from. It's 3.5 feet off the road at height, and you measure to an object half a foot.
I'm just curious, since you were required to have 10, you took 11, I don't know why you did.
Because it was a better spot than 10. I wasn't out in the field personally to do this, so my field
I don't
crew
know.
has 30 years' experience doing this, so they were out there and they did a number of measurements, and that was the best spot.
Anybody else want to see this? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
What's your name again?
Steve Sparaco.
Spell it. A little louder, please.
S-P-A-R-A-C-O.
A-C.
Oh,
Ben,
I don't know what else you want us to talk about, unless you
Okay.
have questions, we.
anybody else have any questions?
I had one question still. And this question will maybe be more appropriate to Mr. Or maybe you Councilor Hassett. You're in the business of actually installing fences and also signs, right? If I called you, let's say, to install a sign on my property.
Mr. Slackman, would you get up? I'm
Sign.
sorry. Okay.
You don't have that on tape, do you?
Yep. But that's okay, he called Mr. Slackman, Mr. Stein. And
So
Mis-
it's all
Mr.
even.
And Mr. Landscape, you're even.
When you put up that sign,
I called him
whatever
Mister,
for
that's the
yourself,
thing.
you did not hire any engineer to find out where was the best spot, correct? Now, had I hired you to put a sign on my property,
He doesn't do signs.
I'm sorry?
He only does
You
landscape.
don't do any signs, you don't install signs?
No, I didn't install that sign, no.
But the one that you have on your property, you installed it yourself?
No, I had somebody install the sign.
Someone came to you, okay.
Well, we built the pillars and they installed the sign.
Can you come
Sign
up
person.
a
So
little?
my question is. if
Mr.
you did-
Stein.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You're still under oath, I remind you.
Okay,
It's been a while, but you're still under
that's all
oath.
right, I'm okay, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My question is, you did not ask the person who installed your sign whether he was in compliance in doing so, whether he knew the village laws. That person had come to my property and installed a sign for me, and would not have said the same thing. Today, I would be in trouble. So, did you actually bother to put the sign there and find out what the rules are, or you just put it there and then you said, well, I'll tackle it later on if I need a variance?
I actually thought I was complying at the time.
You thought it was compliance, without knowing what was the requirement, I guess, because otherwise.
Well, we took a measurement, I guess I measured wrong, obviously, is what I did, and I read the law wrong, and that's why I wouldn't have done it intentionally. I don't wanna go, I've been here for a lot of meetings, I'd really rather would have avoided this if possible.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Oh, I have a question. Why are the pavers being taken up from the curb?
No, DOT's requiring.
Yeah, remember, I'm not sure you.
Well, that's, Jim,
Just curious.
they're not, they want us taking, but because they don't have any laws for
Loud.
for pavers.
We
Yeah,
had talked
cement.
about whether or not, I think you had said that DOT wanted them removed at one point, but you put them in because there was only mud there.
There was.
We did, right.
Right, and it would be ironic now if you had to remove them and we'd go back to mud.
Okay, but if that's what DOT wants, that's what DOT's gonna have to get.
I'm just restating it.
Right.
It just seems silly.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Because it looks really pretty.
It is, it's very nice. And I think it's,
Neat.
and I think it's helping the safety of that road on that particular stretch too. I think it's a benefit, so.
I'd just like to say that, there are certain requirements when you discuss variances. The character of the neighborhood, this sign certainly is not against any other sign that's in the character. I mean, the sign, there are many signs in the village that look just like that and that are really not that pretty. I mean, his place is really a show place for the village. And the sign.
Yeah, but there are a lot of signs that are not 10 feet back, or because they've been, there are some signs that are not 10 feet back because they were there before the village. But after we've incorporated, we expect the sign to comply, and to the extent that we grant one here, unless there's something unique in this situation, then you could argue sidelines are unique, but everyone's got sidelines issues. But, I mean, anyone can come in and ask for a sign with zero front yard.
They can, and you'd have to make a decision based upon that individual application.
You are right, we would have to.
And the truth of the matter is that whether the signs were pre-existing before the village took effect or after, it's still the character of the neighborhood.
Well,
The character of the neighborhood doesn't change.
But
because
since
you
we've been
became a village.
incorporated, we have been requiring, for the most part, in fact, as far as I know, all signs to be complied with the setback.
Well, that's why the ZBA is here.
That's, you're exactly right, that's why we're here. We don't do things by rote, we do things on individual matters, I agree.
Correct.
I
And the
thank
truth
you
of the
for
matter
your
is the
presentation.
sign is plenty away from the street, as evidenced by the DOT letter, which again, I tell you, is a unique letter that you'll probably never see again in your lifetime.
You're not giving me too much longer to live, are you?
No, it's the first one for me in 26 years.
Ms. Gallo, please.
Mr. Stein,
You're killing me off altogether.
what percentage of your business is generated by people driving by, seeing your sign and pulling into your place of business?
I think a big portion of it is people seeing my sign when they drive by and knowing I'm there.
No, but they don't drive by and like pull in, like, you have a lot of walk-ins?
Well, I have a lot of customers that call me for my sign and stopping in and asking, a lot, I've increased my business a lot in the village right now, since I've been there with my sign, yes, to answer your question.
I don't know if it's the sign or actually the very nice landscape.
Well, thank you very much, but people sometimes
Which is
drive.
more impressive than your sign.
Well, thank you very much. Well, people do drive by, and I think if the sign wasn't there, they wouldn't know I was there, because I would say sometimes, on the place, the waterfall, and they don't even know what waterfall, they just drive by. It's Route 45, they go by 45, 50 miles an hour sometimes, so without the sign, it'd be a problem.
You come up here for a second,
Of course.
let's go back over something that's, and I think it's a little bit.
You mentioned a couple of things, I just want to be clear here. Did you first say that you weren't aware of the code, and then you
Well,
said you read the code and didn't understand it?
No, when I read the code, I thought I was within the right way to do this.
What would make you come to that conclusion?
Because I guess I measured wrong, number one, and number two, when I read the sign as far as the size, I didn't realize it had the double-sided, which has been changed since then, I understand, but I didn't do this intentionally.
What did you measure?
You're talking about 10 years ago, you know.
It turned out to be the best place where you could have put that without even having hired Mr. Sparaco there before you did that. It's really amazing.
That could be an engineer.
Amazing.
I spent a lot of time on the building. I put a lot of money into it. I think I've done a good job over there. I think it looks nice to the village.
It's true.
I was concerned that the DOT wasn't gonna let us keep the sign there, but they have no objections to it. And if I have to sign something that says if they wanna widen the road, I'll move the sign, I'll move it tomorrow. But I would.
I don't think we have that problem.
Well, part of the, just so that you know, part of the planning board application is the dedication of a strip for road widening, which is required. So that'll be deeded to the village or
Yes, to the village.
to the village for future use prior to the chairperson signing the final subdivision, final site plan.
Wait a minute, so what amount of distance is that?
I believe it's 10 feet.
So then you're 20 feet out. If you're gonna deed 10 to the town, and you're at 0,
I'm not sure what he's deeding.
Yeah, it's just a
What
road
are you
widening
deeding?
easement.
Inside the right of way.
Right, you know, all those things are different. I mean, if you drove by there now as a layperson, you would have to say, I really believe this, that the sign is pretty far off the road. I mean, it really is, and.
But if they ever widen the road to the right of way, the sign would be over the right of way.
You know, if they widen the road, we'll move the sign, how's that? But I really don't believe that in Mr. Stein's lifetime, that they're gonna widen that road. I'll say mine.
Who in effect built the sign?
Well, we did pillars, you know, the stonework.
The big
And
stonework.
I'm trying to think of it, I got the sign, I think from, I think Marv Signs, Muncie, no, I think it was Marv Signs, I'm not sure, though, yes. It was a
So
lot
your
of
own
signs.
people built the
We
columns?
built the college, yes, sir.
And electrically, how did you set that up?
We had electrician come in there,
That comes from your building?
yes. It's on the, well, it goes on the dawn to dusk, yeah.
Maybe just a hypothesis, but it seems like the sign was originally built 12 feet or so from the original boundary line.
I'm sure that's what he did.
That's,
Sounds like what he did was take the
yeah.
Right,
current
from the
boundary
Without
line of the
taking
road
consideration for the DSL.
without
future
actually
DSL.
surveying where the right of way was.
Exactly.
Right. Which is something you're not gonna know as a homeowner or a property owner without a survey.
Yeah, but that's why property owners are supposed to do surveys.
Yeah, it's just under 20 feet, the road widening is 19.375 from the paver,
From the paver.
yeah. This is the designated street line. This is the 19 feet is here. So this was the road widening dedication to the village required by the state.
And they're inside it.
Yeah, but initially he was not. Initially,
We were 12
he
feet off
was
the
using
property
this.
He made a,
He was using his property line
I know.
Right.
as the,
Yeah, so it looks like,
Right,
as the boundary, without taking into consideration the 19 feet.
which to this day, to our knowledge, has not been dedicated, but it will be as a condition of.
Yeah, well, when you get final
Right.
site plan,
Right,
before they sign the site plan, you're gonna have to
right.
issue the,
okay.
Jim's
The
actually
deed.
working on the documents right now.
yeah, so,
What is that dedicated area for?
these,
What is that dedicated area for?
Just in case the state ever wants to
Widen.
expand the
To
road.
widen the road,
Right.
understood, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They have no issues with the land.
but that doesn't mean that,
This is-
remember, they'd still have to take land away from all the neighbors who were there, who didn't come here for something,
because
you know
this
what I'm
is the
saying?
10-foot.
When you come for a site plan, they grab your land as a requirement, but all those other people up and down, they'd have to condemn that 10-foot strip. I just don't see him widening that portion.
Mr. DeCaro, what's your professional opinion? Was the fellow that, or the company that put up the sign in that spot without knowing that it was in violation, liable to
Not
Mr.
any-
Stein?
Not anymore.
Why?
It's 6 years with statute of limitations
Statute of limitation, 6 years?
In theory,
for contracts.
3 years for negligence, measured from when it happens, typically.
6 years for contracts.
And he probably didn't know there was gonna be a road widening.
Probably
you
didn't know
might
that,
not have-
and to be honest
You
with
might
you,
not be able to go after him anyway.
I think
But
there are.
even without the road widening, as I understand it, the right of way still went up that far.
Yes, but I think that some communities measure from the property line. Correct, Doris? Some communities measure from the property line, so it's not outlandish to measure from your property line.
Yeah, we always measure from the designated
Right,
street line.
no, I understand. Unfortunately, everybody does it differently.
Here's the setback. Same designated.
Yeah, all of our setbacks are measured, so is the building measured from the designated street line.
So no, measured from the property.
No. Everything's
In
measured.
everything.
Everything is measured from the designated street line.
I just wanted to check on something. It is, you understand. I'm informed that virtually everything we measure from the designated
In the village.
street line in the village. And you would expect people who are building to understand that we measure from the designated street lines and not from the property line. I understand that other villages may be different.
Right.
I don't know because you tell me that, I accept that. I don't have any reason. I accept it. So-
The sign's been there for 10 years, nobody's run into it.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay, are you done with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, anyone from the public want to speak on the issue of the setback of this sign? Hearing none, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Any second? All in favor? Any contrary-minded? None? Public hearing is closed. A lot of times I speak first, but I want to hear from some others before I speak. Anybody want to say something about this?
Well, I'd like to say something, Mr. Chairman. My concern is that the sign, although it appears that it's not anywhere near the road, it is in fact in the wrong place. And ignorance of the law is not an excuse for doing the wrong thing. So I'm very concerned about the extent of this variance that we're talking about. And I at the moment, I'm not inclined to approve it.
You know, I have a T-shirt at home that says, "There's no right way to do the wrong thing." By the same token, it's a very attractive sign. There's no question it's an attractive sign. I agree with everything Ms. Gallo said. But it should not have been there. It just should not have been there. And for us to, I'm concerned, people make mistakes all the time. People put decks when they shouldn't put decks. And put fences where they shouldn't put fences. And do a lot of other stuff where they shouldn't have put it. And they come to us.
That's why they have a ZBA.
Why you have a ZBA? You
Otherwise,
grant
there'd be no reason.
variances in proper and appropriate situations. But I'm concerned, not only is this self-created hardship, as you go through all the elements, I do think it has the potential to change the character, because with this zero variance, you have the potential that others can have zero variances, and we did not want as a village those signs on the road. I hear you.
It's not precedent setting. It's just not.
That's my concern. Because of where county planning is, you are required to have a vote of 5 to approve this variance. Anybody else want to say anything?
I would, Mr. Chairman. I think, I hear what Ms. Gallo and the chairman are saying, and I too share a concern that, that ignorance of the law is no excuse. However, in this particular case, I would like to go on record and say I will most likely vote in favor of granting this variance, and the reason being is that I really appreciate the fact that you did comply with us, our wishes, and put that plywood sign way back there. I agree with you that at that location it is virtually useless, and the sight lines are in fact horrible. And I, with all respect, Mr. Chairman, I don't necessarily think that this would affect the character of the neighborhood. I will just agree to disagree on that, and I think in this one particular instance, I'm inclined to grant the variance.
You know, one of the things that and now they close the public hearing, I may want to ask you to, or maybe to open it again for a second. One thing we are charged with doing also is to grant the minimum variance. That, well, I don't think that would help. This is, either grant any variance on this one that's a 0. I'm just saying, I mean, in theory, if you gave a 5-foot variance in this particular location, what?
He'd be a zero.
He'd still be at 0. He'd still be at 0. He'd still have to move it. But if he moved it 5 feet back from the street line, it would improve the site variance that he come up here before he built it. We would be discussing whether or not we require the 10 feet or whether we require something less than that, that would give him sufficient sight lines. But now, because he already built it, we're being asked to give all or nothing. And that's what concerns me. If people would come to us before they build these things, we'd have the discussion we're supposed to have under the law, which is to grant a minimum variance that's required. Now, I think we have to ignore the fact, I would ignore the fact that the sign is there and ask myself whether or not there'd be a variance I would have granted had he not built the sign. And that, I can't really answer because we haven't had the proof of it. But it's something I certainly would have considered as being something reasonable.
There's also the element of and you said it's self-imposed, but there is a financial hardship involved here, and I do want to be, about $10,000, $12,000. I mean, I do want to be sympathetic to somebody trying to operate a business in this community. So I don't think that it's worth $12,000 to move that sign back and really have it be pointers.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, well, a few things to say. First of all, do we know exactly, or is there an estimate of someone that,
Well, we close the public hearing,
Okay, yeah, okay, yes.
all right?
There's no estimate.
Let's assume it's gonna cost money to put
Okay.
this on.
All right. The other thing is that now that the signs have become, the sign of the signs have changed from the village, it means that somebody else too can actually build a sign bigger than this one. I think that, I don't know exactly what the new requirements are, at the same location. I'm afraid of residences also, because now signs are bigger, and if we allow them to actually put them on the road or close to the road, a lot of people will have the kind of sign, the biggest possible way. The building is beautiful, the sign is beautiful, and I think that if it was moved to the right place, as I brought some of the pictures here, when I moved them digitally, remember?
Right.
I don't think it's gonna be tracked, and I think people can still see it.
Well,
That's just my point.
But, let's bring this to a close.
Can I just ask you a question about the number of votes? You had said you need 5.
We need 5 because county.
Why would you only need 4? There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people here. Assume a majority would be 4.
There's 7 on the board. Voting power is 7.
So even though one's absent.
One, there's a vacancy. So you need a majority plus 1. That's fine.
I wasn't aware we'd have a vacancy until it was too late. I mean, I wouldn't.
It just
change
happened.
And when county planning goes against, a petition, we have to have 5 votes. They don't talk a majority, they talk numbers. All right, so, anyone want to make a motion of any kind?
No. Absolutely.
Mr. Stewart?
Make a motion that we approve the applicant's variance.
Okay, is there a second? Nobody wants a second. Well, on the theory that someone seconds it, doesn't have to vote for it, I'll second, just to bring it up for a vote. So all in favor of granting the requested variance, say aye. Aye. We have 1. All opposed? We have 4 with 1 abstention. So, the motion was to grant it, and that was denied. We need a motion to deny it. I guess we do. We have a motion to deny it.
I make a motion that we deny the requested variance.
I second that motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any contrary minded?
Aye.
1 and 1
Nay,
abstention.
I should say.
Sorry, Mr. Starr.
Thank you.
Tough one.
Yeah.
Okay, now, we're gonna take something out of order. We're gonna take Chestnut Ridge Associates next. Mr. Lippert, I assume you are making this presentation?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Now, this is a public hearing to consider the application for interpretation of the table of general use requirements, Part 2, non-residential districts, district of the zoning law of the village of Chestnut Ridge to determine if landscaping business conducted on premises known as 30 Sapphire Lane in the village of Chestnut Ridge is a permitted use in the LO zoning district. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've submitted an application and attached two letters that had actually previously been submitted to the board. So I assume that's all part of the record.
Yes.
The argument is as follows. This is a landscaping contracting business. Steve's Lawns is conducting and wants to continue to conduct. A landscaping contracting business is not listed as an expressly permitted use in your table of uses. Accordingly, all the case law says, and your own ordinance says, that if it's not expressly listed as permitted, it's not permitted. You have opinions from your village attorney to that effect in the past, that this particular use at Steve's Lawns location, 30 Central Lane, is not a permitted use in the yellow zone. And those opinions are, again, attached to my submissions. When Mr. Baum, the planning board, who's now the planning board attorney, looked at this, he has a memo in the file. His first impression was that it's not a permitted use, and for the reasons that I've stated. He subsequently changed his opinion, and the reason that's been offered by the applicant, I believe the reason that he changed his opinion.
Well, you're the applicant.
Well, Steve's, when I said the applicant, I was
applicant.
referring to Steve's. So, I think it was suggested by the applicant in number 2, not me, but the Steve's Lawns application. The argument that...
For other information?
Excuse me.
I don't know if we're talking about Steve's Lawns
We know what we're
application.
talking about.
But I don't, that's why it's a point of information.
We're talking about, if you were here, maybe you weren't, we are taking the third item first.
No, I understand that, but he was just referring to the applicant, Steve's Lawn, referred to number 2, and I just want to clear that we're not talking about Steve's Lawn application as number 2. It's his application, correct?
We are all aware of that.
Well, now I am too, thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, can we have an instruction? I'd like to be able to present my application without being interrupted.
Well, I can't guarantee that. I've been known to interrupt every time.
Well, it's one thing for me.
But the public shouldn't be doing it, unless there's truly a point of order involved.
So anyway, the theory that's been proffered in order to come to the conclusion that the Steve's Lawns use of a contracted landscaping use is a permitted use in the yellow zone goes as follows. Well, let me strike that. Let me start from this. It's been suggested that because there are other landscapers in the village who are in the yellow zone and they've been allowed to operate, that a landscaping contracting use is in fact a permitted use by custom or by past practice. That's a complete mischaracterization of what's going on in the past. And one only needs to analyze the biosphere application. The reason that biosphere was allowed to proceed as a landscaping contracting business in the record is as follows. Biosphere had 1,288 square feet of office space. It was a home, it had previously been a residential use and it was converted to office use. And it was a 700 square foot garage that was used by the applicant for storage. The Biosphere application involved a professional office use, which is what's required in the yellow zone, a landscape architect. And a landscape architect is a professional office use, just as a lawyer, a doctor, an architect, an engineer would be. And the theory in that case was that the landscaping business was accessory to the primary use of office use. The theory that sustained the Biosphere application is that you had a professional or business office use, a landscape architect, and that the contracting business was accessory to that use.
And if you analyze the biosphere application, it had 1,288 square feet of office space and 700 square feet of garage. Now, if I were a zoning board member, I don't know that I would have bought that argument, but at least it's a plausible argument that the contracting business was subordinate, it was accessory to the professional office use. That's the basis on which he was allowed to operate an office and as an adjunct, as an accessory to that, a contracting business. So it would be a complete mischaracterization to say as a result of that, landscaping contracting businesses are now permitted uses in yellow zones. That's simply wrong. So now let's take a look at the Steve's Lawns application, where you have 2,000 square feet of office space out of a total of 12,000 square foot of building. You simply cannot come to the conclusion that the primary use is a professional office use there, when you have 2,000 square feet of office use and 10,000 square feet of contracting business. It's useful to take a look at the definition of the word principal use in the ordinance and the word accessory use in the ordinance. The principal use is the primary or predominant use for which a lot or building is used. One simply cannot fairly conclude that office use is the primary or predominant use, given the facts of that application as you've seen it before you. You may recall that I was asking questions about how many desks there were and who would occupy them. We didn't get very far with that. But the reason that I was asking that is I was trying to ascertain, is this going to be really an office use, or is it really going to be a contracting business? And if you look at the nature of the buildings, they're two 6,000 square foot industrial type of buildings. They don't look like office buildings. And if you look at the site plan where there's going to be many trucks and equipment stored on the property, there's going to be outdoor storage bins and materials. And by the way, a contracted storage yard is an expressly prohibited use by your zoning ordinance. You simply cannot say that the principal use of the Steve's Lawns application is professional office use.
Excuse me, can I ask just a point of order to the attorney here? Mr. Lippert is discussing the application for zoning variance that Steve's Lawns brought up and subsequently has indicated a desire to withdraw. Is that something that we should be talking about here in when he's looking at it?
Yeah, because he's asking for an interpretation of the zoning law that would permit that use by Steve.
Okay, thank you.
So he actually has to describe the use to us to see whether or not, so
but
we
it's
can
not
see
the
whether
present
it's
use, it's the proposed variance. It's the proposed
well, he's using
use.
that to demonstrate that under the proposed variance, they were making even greater use or whatever. They were continuing that use as a contractor and not keeping it primarily as an office.
I think he's using the site plan that is currently before the planning board.
And don't forget, we didn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
We didn't.
Ms. Ullman.
She said we think you're using the site plan.
I'm referring to the site plan that's
Right.
in
So
front of
we
the
have
planning
that
board.
now.
Okay.
Don't forget the matter is still
Okay,
before us.
just want to make sure.
So he's just using that to demonstrate, to try to demonstrate whether or not they're in compliance with the zoning code. So he's using what Steve's Lawn presented to us to demonstrate the use of the property consistent or inconsistent with the zoning code. Thank you.
And if you take a look at the definition of accessory use, it uses the words incidental or subordinate and customarily in connection with the principal building, structure, or use. Now, I don't think it's...
What are you reading from?
I'm reading from your ordinance, your zoning ordinance, from the definition of accessory use in your zoning ordinance.
That's what it is,
Yeah.
definition of accessory.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
And so I don't think that it can fairly be concluded that a contracting landscaping business is customarily used in connection with a professional office building. And the contracting landscaping business is certainly not incidental or subordinate as presented on the site plan. It's the primary use of the property. And any fair view of that property, if you were to go there and if it were built as presented, no one would say that this is an office building or an office complex. They would say that this is an industrial or contracting type site. That's simply what's depicted there. So no matter how you measure it, whether in terms of the number of employees I think that would be devoted to office use, or based on square footage as proposed by the applicant, one cannot fairly conclude that the principal use of that's being proposed by the applicant is professional office use.
It's a speeding ticket. With the lights.
Doesn't look like it's over.
Now, as I said, I was comparing it to the biosphere application, where there was a greater deal of square footage proposed for an office. You were talking about converting what had been an existing residential building to an office structure, and there was just a smaller garage that was being used for storage. As I said, that one could argue about whether or not that met the test of the ordinance, but I don't think there's any argument at all that the activity proposed by Steve's Lawns would not fall into that category. Sometimes in the law there are close questions and gray areas. I don't think this is a gray area at all. So I think the conclusion must be that this is not a permitted use in the yellow zone, and that the applicant must apply for use variance. And this is not just me saying that. Your village attorney has said that in writing on more than one occasion. And I think if you lined up 10 zoning lawyers, they would all have the same opinion. You can't fairly characterize what's.
Mr. Bam changes, right?
Well, I don't think Mr. Bam's original impression, before he had been advised of what the practice had been in the village before, was that it was not permitted. There's a memo in the file in the planning board that says that. And then he changed his mind, but honestly, I don't think he really gave it a great deal of thought. And that's another problem. I don't think anyone has given this issue a great deal of thought until now. And now you have the opportunity to make this right. If there have been misinterpretations of the code in the past, this is the time to correct it.
What do you mean, he changed his mind after he was advised of practice?
That's my recollection of what he said at the planning board, because I asked him at the planning board, I asked him why he had changed his opinion, because he obviously had changed his opinion as to whether it had been a permitted use or not. And the answer, my recollection of what he said at the hearing, which is probably a year and a half ago already, is that he'd been advised that similar uses at other sites in the village had been permitted. And that based on that practice, he was going to go along with the notion that landscaping and contracting uses were permitted uses in the yellow zone. And what I've been trying to say is when you really do the analysis, that doesn't hold up at all. It doesn't make any sense. The only theory on which that occurred was that this landscaping contracting use was accessory to a primary professional office use.
Or it was permitted in another zone.
Well, we're not talking about any other zones but LO. We're only talking about the yellow zone. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Right. So it's really not that difficult analysis, and it's really not a lengthy analysis. To me, you can't have 2,000 square feet of office space out of a total of 12,000 and say the primary use is office. Compounded with what the site actually looks like, which is nothing like an office use, and what the actual activity out there will be, which is assigning contractors to go to and from and drive trucks in and out. This is not an office use. It's not a professional office use, and the applicant should have to get use variance. That's the argument.
Point of information.
I have some other.
Point of order.
No, wait your turn.
Wait your turn. I have some other things to say about, but I think it would probably pertain to the other item on the agenda, so I'll reserve on saying that. But again, I just want to conclude by saying what I said before, and I'm sorry for repeating myself. I don't think it's a close question. This is not a permitted use in the yellow zone. It just doesn't withstand any kind of analysis whatsoever. And if in fact there had been a misinterpretation of the ordinance in the past, this is the time to correct it.
And let me just say what Mr. may have missed was my saying to them that they also could have been existing in other zones, is landscape.
Well, there was a landscape, I believe there's
I
one
was
in.
just explaining what I said, and Mr.
Yeah.
President said he didn't agree.
Yeah, okay. They could have been in other zones.
What other zone? Point of order, we're not ready yet.
You're going to have a
Okay.
chance, all right?
All right.
You keep raising point of orders, I appreciate it, I usually recognize them, but I think you can wait till you have the opportunity with the rest of the public to state what you want to state. You will have the opportunity to state what you want to state. Yes. Go ahead.
I thought you were waiting for me to call him. I wouldn't do that.
Mr. Lippert, we all know that every use that exists is not stated as such in any zoning law, that there are always uses that are similar to other uses that may be permitted within a particular zone. I think in order to give the board the information that it needs to make a determination, I would ask you, and you may not be prepared to do it tonight, I would ask you to go down every list, every use that's permitted within the LO zone and explain to the board why you believe the proposed use of Steve's Lawn does not fit within that particular category. Because that's what the board has to do. That's what I do when I look at a use to see if it is permitted in a particular zone.
In other words, what you're saying is, can he make an analogy from the permitted uses that would extrapolate to a landscaping use, that would demonstrate a landscaping
Well,
use would
just
be
the
a permitted
opposite.
use?
Mr. Lippert is
Or the
claiming
opposite.
that none of the stated uses apply to landscaping use. And I think he has to provide evidence to the board as to why each of those uses cannot be interpreted to be a landscaping use.
You know, if I could just get a copy of the permitted uses, I have to look in my file to see.
You don't have to answer tonight.
See if I have it.
Yeah, you may not be able to do it tonight.
It's in your letter dated August 8th.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, but I just couldn't find it. Okay. Yeah, actually, you know, I'm fine for doing it tonight.
No, you should try to do as much as you can tonight. The only thing I say is that I'm gonna want to digest everything you say. It's a critical issue. I do not want to give it any kind of short shrift. I'm not sure everybody is here that should be here, but people weren't given notice and they attended if they want to attend. But I do want to consider everything you've submitted and what you're going to submit. And yes.
Before we get to that, I'm glad you mentioned notice because I forgot at the beginning of the meeting. And Veronica's not here tonight.
I submitted our affidavit of proof of notice.
Of mailing?
Yeah, and mailings,
Did
yes.
you send a certified letter to Steve's Lawns?
Yes. Well,
Because we received a letter from Mr. Lynch today that indicated that his client did not get notice.
30 Steffer Lane quarter with a company.
You did?
Was served, yes,
And you
absolutely.
provided the proof to
Veronica, yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll check that.
Yes.
You make a
Thank
note
you.
and check that.
Just to go back to your ordinance, in Article 3 called Use Regulations, it's on page Roman numeral 3-6, at least in my copy, says that in every zone in the village, contractors' storage yards are not permitted, they're prohibited. So let's start with that. Now let's look at the table of uses for the yellow zone district. The first, number 1 says same as NS, which is utilities. So this, I don't think you can fairly characterize this as a utility. Number 2 is office buildings, and this is what I've been speaking about primarily, for business and professional use, including administrative, scientific, research and development, training, statistical, financial, and similar purposes in connection with such use. Again, I don't think that a landscaping business or landscaping contracting business is anywhere near that. Next one is laboratories, research facilities, and corporate parks. That doesn't apply. The next is medical and dental clinics, health service complexes. Doesn't apply. Those are the list of permitted uses. There are also conditional uses. And they're the same as in the RR 50 zone, which I guess we can look at. But they're residential uses and certainly don't apply. This is not a residential use. But let me go back to the LO zone. The next one is outdoor recreation facilities, including golf courses, tennis courts, ice skating rinks, swimming pools, parks, playfields, and ski areas. Accessory to outdoor recreation facilities, uses such as restrooms, locker rooms, shelters, and clubhouses for membership clubs, subject to Article 12, Section 6. But excluding miniature golf courses, batting ranges, and tennis batting ranges. Then there's number 3, same as in the NS zone, temporary structures. We're not talking about temporary structures. The next is hotels and motels, subject to Article 12, Section 3, provided that such uses shall not be located within 1,200 feet of a residence district or within 2,000 feet of another hotel or motel. The next is commercial recreation facilities. The next is manufacturing of prototype products as an adjunct to an office or laboratory use, and that's permitted provided all activities are within fully enclosed structures. And then, of course, the next one is in the current ordinance is landscape contractors, but then we get into the issue of the amendment to the ordinance that occurred in 2010, I believe it was. This is 2009, sorry. And you'll recall, and I discussed this prior, that amendment to the ordinance.
Part of this application.
Yeah, but I'm going to. But that amendment to the ordinance did expressly, by its terms, does not apply to any application that was pending at the planning board before that ordinance was adopted. And so that amendment to the ordinance does not apply to this project. The old law, prior to the amendment, applies to this project. That's what the ordinance says. Then there are special permit uses. Surface and overhead public utilities such as gas, electric, water, and telephone transmission systems, including buildings, structures, towers, antennae, and personal wireless service facilities necessary for the furnishing of adequate service by public utilities. Dog and cat boarding facilities, I won't read all the language, I don't think that that's close. Volunteer ambulance service facilities. And then there are accessory uses. Again, same as in the NS zone, parking, loading, and temporary structures. And then number 2, maintenance and utility shops for the upkeep and repair of buildings and structures on the site. Central heating and air conditioning plants, power substations, water supplies, and sewage disposal facilities, training schools for employees, communication facilities, company clinics, and oops.
Started company clubs.
Yeah. I'm going too fast.
Could oblige.
The digital tape recorder isn't here tonight?
No.
Are we back on the record? All right, so back to company clinics, employee dining and recreation facilities, all of which are for the exclusive use of employees and visitors to the buildings, but not for the general public. That's it. So I would submit to you, there's nothing even close. Landscaping contracting yard isn't close to any of those uses, whether they're permitted uses, conditional uses, or uses by special permit. And I agree with Doris. You know, sometimes there's a gray area about whether or not a use. Here's the perfect example. 20 years ago or so, nobody ever heard of self-storage facilities. And when people started to develop them, people said, well, they're warehouses, and all the warehouse rules ought to apply. But it turned out that as things developed, I think the consensus was this was a different kind of use than just a warehouse use. You know, people buy small cubicles, people rent small cubicles to put their personal things in there, maybe a little more traffic. Yeah, it's a different use, but nobody knew that at the time. And so at first, it was sort of a gray area. There was a question of interpretation. Well, should we consider this a warehouse use? And over time, it's grown clear that one shouldn't consider it a warehouse use. It's a different kind of use. And then ordinances came on the books to address that specific kind of use. So, you know, there were certainly gray areas that requires a matter of interpretation. I submit to you that there's nothing gray about this. This is not the use of that property proposed by Steve's Lawns is not even close to any of the permitted uses, any of the uses that are conditional uses, or any of the uses that are permitted by special permit. And the only theory on which this has been sustained is that elsewhere, landscaping contracting yards have been permitted in the village in the yellow zone. And as I explained to you, when you really analyze that, the reason that they've been permitted had to do with the specific facts of those applications and an analysis of how much office space there was and how much non-office space there was. And when you do that analysis here, it just doesn't stand up. You can't possibly say that 2,000 square feet of office space is the primary use. That's my argument.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody on the zoning board right now? I think we need time to study this a little further. I think, Doris, in light of what Mr. Lippman went through, you don't need anything further on the question you asked, right?
No.
Not from him.
Well, I thank you for your time.
Okay, let's see what the public has to say. If anybody.
Point of order before you go to the public?
You want?
Well, I don't want to go out of order. You had said something about it was legal in other zones, permitted in other zones.
I didn't say it was or wasn't. I said it might have been that they were in other zones. What I meant to say.
All right. Do you know if they were?
Do I know if they were?
Yes.
No. Well, not true. I think biospheres and PIs.
So you're saying you believe that landscapers were permitted in the PI zone? I'm just trying to figure out what's being said.
That doesn't sound like a point of order. But
Well, you
I'm
had
not-
said something, that's why.
All I said was they may have been permitted in other zones, and I haven't done any research to figure that out.
Okay.
All right? We're just trying to figure out, as Mr. Lippert was saying, that Bound was told that the uses were permitted, and I said, well, there may be uses permitted, maybe the uses permitted in other zones. I don't know that for a fact.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Levine?
Mark Levine, 14 Lancaster Lane, Deputy Chairman of Planning.
I'm sorry, Deputy Chairman?
Deputy.
Are you testifying at the Deputy Chairman of Planning?
At this point, I'm testifying as Mark Levine, I'm testifying as Deputy Chairman of Planning. My knowledge as Deputy Chairman of Planning. I would just like to address Mr. Lippert's elegant presentation.
Sure.
It wasn't accurate. Let me explain a few points that weren't accurate. He referred to.
I want to adjourn this for 5 minutes.
I finally got my chance.
You'll have your chance. You are here.
Anybody else freezing?
Kill the air.
It's locked. Where's the key?
You have two machines going today?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what they told me to do.
Get a better view of
I
everything?
guess so. They're making a 3D film.
I should've put on makeup.
I believe Richie, we're gonna make a 3D film. We're gonna make a 3D movie out of it. Oh boy.
You're taping for Lynch, for Dennis Lynch.
Dennis Lynch, yeah.
How you doing?
Gotta go back to the doctor.
The rubber band's a good idea. Yeah. Don't let 'em rattle.
You can say, you know, sit down. Come on, save the horse shit for that. Huh? Come on. Please. How do you try? Come on.
It might be warmer out there. Yeah, it's getting ugly, weather-wise.
It's raining more. When I first got. No.
It is cold.
The cop said he would speak. You know, he was getting DWI.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it was speeding or if it was swerving, that's why he was doing it. And it was amazing is that there was a lawyer right down there, there was a cop who was outside talking to me, so it was like, you know, is there a lawyer in the house? That was
Jason might have read everything's fine.
Oh, so I won't tell him to call.
I heard him say it's getting hot, I'm like, I get cold, and I'm like, it's.
If you get cold, you tell him to charge it.
Oh, I didn't see that. Really? Yeah.
It looks good.
It was warm when I first got
Make it the focus. Attention.
All right, let's shut that air conditioning, let's go back on the record.
Yes, please. Please shut that off. I make a motion to turn the.
I'll second.
Yeah, turn. Okay, we're back in order, back in session, rather. Although,
I'm sorry, I was just letting you know, so you, okay, stop.
Although we have observed over the last period of time, however it is, that there are people who are filming us, and we certainly don't infringe your right to film us, I am uncomfortable when those cameras are so close. Our notes are not privileged for you guys, for anybody to look at, and I would hope that it doesn't pick it up.
I'm involved with this, Mr. Chairman, I can tell you can go to any one of them, zoom in as far, and there's no way we pick up anything.
All right, but what I would ask you to do, because you are so close, is to move back into the corners of the room.
I have issues with
When
sound
you
though.
first started, what?
I have issues with sound that far away.
Right, that's the reason, because the micro, you guys see the
I'm very
speaker
uncomfortable
here,
with these cameras this close.
the speaker here is picked up.
Yeah.
But because those microphones aren't by you or Ms. Ullman,
Fair,
it doesn't pick it up.
fair. Move back, we'll use the mics.
Okay.
Okay.
If you, if
That
there is
will
a
come
time
through
that you
there?
can't hear, you tell me,
I
and we'll
can,
make
I
sure
can't
you
tell
can.
till after this.
What?
The
I-
stenographer might also be able to read what's on your table. It's closer than the camera.
Okay,
Okay. I won't know if I can pick it up, but it will come through the speakers?
all right. Well, we will use the speakers from now on.
Okay.
Okay, all of us on the zoning board, please, try to use the speakers when we speak. Okay?
Is it because you still think it's picking up the notes?
They just should not be that close.
Well,
We will use the speakers. In fact, I'll start now.
We will use the speakers.
Okay.
I hear you now.
Please move it back toward the.
Is that sufficient further?
You know, when you first started, you were in the corner.
I know, then we had
You
sound
slowly
problems.
inched up every meeting, back to the corner.
At my direction, and only because of the sound.
Well, I wish you would have told me we would have used the speakers. I appreciate it. Fair comment. Didn't we get rid of you already?
Yeah, it's hard to get rid of me, right?
We're in the middle of a
I have,
public hearing.
and I don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Levine.
Well, yes,
It's
you
just-
do need to. That's why you're here.
There's just-
I will reserve, I will let Mr. Lippert.
Okay.
The claim had been made that Steve's Lawns didn't get notice of the application. I just want to show you, and Veronica has this, but
Well, we were gonna check it.
I have a copy of the green card, the white slip and the green card, to 37 Lane Court, which is the property owner, addressed the P.O. Box 677, Muncie, New York, and somebody signed for it, and we got the green card back. So I just want the record to reflect that.
We have that.
Okay.
Do we not? We have the green cards, don't we?
Should, yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Levine.
Excuse me, if I may, could the cord?
Who are you?
My name is John Locke. Could the cord in front of the fire entrance be removed? Just 30 cameras?
Is there another outlet?
Yeah, there's another outlet to the other side.
He's right.
A good comment.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it. Did we nail those doors shut or what? Triangle shirtwaist factor. Go ahead. Mr. Levine, you're in the middle.
Anybody else before I get up again?
It's all yours.
Okay. I've been in and out of the room, so I will only speak on what I heard for accuracy. I believe Mr. Lippert was referring to the biosphere application. The biosphere application that came before the planning board was to leave the house and convert the house into an office. The rest of the property was to be used to store his equipment outdoors. There was no indoor storage. I believe this.
That would be for the planning board, right?
That would be for the planning board, but the application was just described to you as an office, a certain percentage office, and a certain percentage garage, storage. And what the planning board approved was the house was to be converted to office, and the rest of the property was outdoor storage. There's another misconception, and you can play it on words, or it could be intentional and maybe not intentional. But
I keep hearing it over and over again that this use does not belong in our professional office zone. The LO zone is not our professional office zone. The PI zone and the LO zones are our industrial zones. The PO zone and the POR zone are our professional office zones. So, Mr. Lippert keeps referring to that these uses don't belong in a professional office zone. I agree with him 100%. That's why we have a PO zone, which is our professional office zone, and a POR zone, which is more of a residential type professional office zone. The LO zone is not our professional office zone. So just so that's clear for the record. The other words being used constantly now, and a good part of his testimony was that the office use and the storage use, that the storage use is not accessory to the office. Where the word accessory ever came in is beyond me. For 11 years, these applications have been heard as office and storage, not office and accessory storage. It's been strictly office and storage. And one of the applications, and what Mr. Lippert is implying, that the office use compared to the storage use, this, you know, that there's something wrong, it's very little office use. But when the planning board was entertaining the All-Green application, I had a concern because All-Green was using the building on Schoolhouse Road, which is right on Schoolhouse Road, as his office. And I said, what if that building has to be torn down at some point? He will no longer have an office. It'll just be the storage and landscaper use. Doris, who was advising us at the time and on the board, you'll remember Doris, we had an argument over this because I felt the landscapers need an office and storage. Doris's interpretation was they don't need an office at all. A landscaper use does not need an office. It was a difference of opinions, but to get back to the point, it was never accessory. It was always office and storage. There were no percentages put on it. And basically, that's what I wanted to say to correct what I believe was misstatements.
Ms. Levine?
Sure.
Mr. Lippert, is it?
Yes.
Mr. Lippert read a list of uses that are permitted in an LO zone.
He was very-
Do you agree with the list that he
Yes, I
itemized
do.
for us?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I believe.
I'm just asking
I
if
ha-
you
I-
agree that those are the items that are permitted in an LO zone.
Okay,
I'm asking
well,
you.
to be honest with you,
Please.
I had to run to the bathroom, but I believe you were reading the code book.
Sure.
And if he was reading the code book, it's accurate.
Okay.
Now, I do have a presentation to make to the board, if the board wants it. I just wanted to correct
That's fine.
the record.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Unless Mr. Lippert is not
You have the
finished.
floor. This is,
Okay.
open to the public.
Okay.
You know the procedure. Tell us what you wanna tell us.
Don't be scared by the whole pile. I cut out a lot of stuff.
I hope you made a copy for each of us.
I did.
Good.
I think I did. I'll come close. I'm gonna take this. Okay. Just to try to help you in making a decision, I just want to give you a little history. Understand it's the way I see it, the way I remember it, and I have documents to back up my memory, which I will supply you. To go back in history, you're gonna have to roll back the clock to late 1999, or early 2000. Okay, and I just want to give you a little background, and Kathy, this might help you with the question you asked me before, as far as if Mr. Lippert was accurate. Okay, our zoning code, just to briefly go through it, especially for the new members of the board, have two industrial districts. One is the PI, and the other is the LO. As I explained before, our professional office district, we have a zone for that. We have two zones for that. Okay? One major difference between the PI zone and the LO zone was that in the late 1980s, the village, us, me, I was part of it, I believe Mr. Mitzner started the process. We took warehousing. Are you picking me up? I hope so.
Can't tell.
We took warehousing out of the LO zone. We had warehousing in the PI zone and the LO zone, and we took warehousing out of the LO zone. That's all we took out. And the reason why we took it out was not storage of materials or anything to do with that. It was to get the big tractor trailers off of our roads. We already permitted them in the PI, and we felt that to permit them to permit the warehousing in the PI and the LO would draw in so much heavy truck traffic every single day that it had no benefit to the residents. And that's why we took warehousing out of the LO. And only warehousing. And it wasn't because we were concerned about storage or anything, it was just the heavy trucking. Okay, back to the zoning codes. There's been talk that landscapers are permitted in this zone, not in this zone. Okay, I challenge any board member to show me in the code, LO or PI, where it says landscaper. It doesn't. And you know why it doesn't? Our codes were written, Doris, you can help me with this, 40, 50 years or more. The basic codes that we established, they go back 40 to 50 years, possibly more.
Portion of them.
Yes, we made changes, but along the way, but landscapers 40, 50 years ago were not heard of. Okay? I grew up here. Everybody mowed their own lawn.
except for people that had a little extra money. And they hired people, but they weren't called landscapers. They were called the kid next door, because landscapers didn't exist. Okay, now, going back to the year 2000, we had a landscaper, Mr. Landscape, who wanted to come before the board. I think you're all familiar with this, okay? In the yellow zone. This was the first plan that Mr. Landscape presented to the boards, okay? Zone LO, I have copies for all of you, you'll be able to look it over. And a lot of people have said, and a lot of talk has been, that, well, Mr. Landscape came in for a landscape office building, not for a landscape use. That's not true. Here's your plan. LO zone, look in the back, 40-foot parking spaces. This is not for his office. 10 by 20-foot spaces. This is not for an office building. Mr. Landscape came before the boards to use the existing house for his office and to use everything back here to store his equipment, his lawnmowers, and his landscape use was going to be outdoors here. And I'd like to submit this as exhibit 1. No, I have one. I have one. I have one. Just hand it in. There's no point?
What's the point? What's your point in this, sir?
Well, my point on this thing is that this landscape, the landscape use, if you give me a chance, I will come to my point.
Well, you did ask where you're going, so why don't you tell us that, what you are offering by all this proof?
Okay, what I'm offering by all this proof is to show what the village has entertained over the years, how we decided that these uses were permitted in the yellow zone. A few of us here are people that were involved in it, myself, Doris, Mr. Miller, you yourself, Tom, were part of these applications. Some of the other board members weren't, but you have a decision here. Mr. Lippert is saying that these uses are not permitted. Okay? He is saying what the planning board did was wrong. He is saying what the zoning board did is wrong. And I'm showing you that.
I don't think he said what the zoning board did was wrong. I haven't heard that.
Well, you will.
Well, maybe you will, but I haven't heard that from Mr. Lippert.
Okay, but I'm just trying to show you what happened in the past.
To influence how we're going to vote in the future?
No, to educate you, so that you can make an educated vote. I mean, if you don't want testimony, then don't open a public hearing.
Listen, you have the floor for testimony.
I
You were
understand.
asked a legitimate question.
I don't disagree.
You answered the question, we answered the question, continue.
Thank
It was a legitimate question. You got to the point, what he's trying to do is give us background on how we've treated this zone before to help us with our interpretation of what we mean this zone exists now. Go ahead.
excuse me, sir, one second.
Sure.
How do you identify this as being the property in question? Is it in some place, I couldn't find anything where this is, I don't see any roads or
Okay,
anything.
okay, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Here's the Gould Foundation, I know that, yes, it does not
It
say
doesn't say anything.
Mr.
It's okay.
Landscape, but I'm sure Doris will say, this is the Mr. Landscape.
Well, this is your evidence, you're presenting it. Is that all you have?
I'm swearing to, that's what it is.
Okay, next. We'll check.
Does this have a date, Mark?
It-
Do you know when it was?
No,
So we can put it on?
I can't say the date that was wrong. If I don't know, I'm not gonna make something up.
Will you be able to find out, do you think?
Possibly.
Because I think, if you're gonna present it as evidence, I think it would be helpful to know the
Okay,
date.
no, I agree. Look, I tried.
Present it, no,
Okay,
put it into evidence, there's no reason why it shouldn't come in.
In
But
case,
if you can, for the next time, get a date,
okay.
so we can identify it, in time.
I can only tell you
Thank
in time, it was before August 15th, 2000, if that helps you. And it was in the year 2000. But I don't want to give you false information.
Yeah, see if you can,
I'll
date
I'll
it.
try to find a date.
go ahead, continue.
Okay, so anyway, that was our initial plan. He was gonna use the original house, and the whole back was gonna be for the landscape equipment, everything else. As you said before, Kathy.
Use the mic, you can't,
I'm
they
sorry.
can't pick you up.
As you said before, where does it say it in the code? I'm the first one to ask that question, and I asked it 10, 11 years ago on Mr. Landscape. It's not a listed use. You're right. I was advised at that time, 10, 11 years ago, that every use, every specific use cannot be listed in our zoning code. It's impossible. I was advised that by Attorney Ullman. Okay, now understand planning board procedure. Before an application is heard by the planning board, it must go to CDRC. CDRC is the village attorney, our professional planner, and our engineer, 3 people. What they do is they will look at the plans and see if they're worthy of, at the state that they're in, to come before the board. And they will also make recommendations to the planning board on the different applications, and to the applicant on different applications. So when that came before us, we had a planning board meeting scheduled for September 19th, 2000, to hear this application. CDRC met August 15th, 2000, to review the application for our board.
The application, you're talking about which application? Mr. Landscape?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Landscape application. Thank you for correcting. I was uncomfortable hearing the Mr. Landscape application because it was not a listed, specifically listed. The code book did not say landscapers are permitted. Okay. CDRC of August 15th, the village attorney, item 6, and I believe it was put in because I was uncomfortable. CDRC wrote, I'll speak up, Item 6, CDRC believes the use as a landscaper is permitted in the LO zone. For the Steve Stein Mr. Landscape application in the LO zone.
And what document was that that he showed you?
CVRC maybe? CVRC?
It appears to be somebody noting 6 points
That's
in
CDRC.
connection with a
Here, CDRC.
I see that,
Okay.
but I don't know who did it.
But there's only 3 people on CDRC, Mr.
I
Chairman.
still don't know who did it.
Right, but all CDRC.
Is this a minute from the CDRC?
These are the CDRC minutes. To the
Doesn't say
planning
it's
board.
CDRC minutes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, CDRC meeting.
That's all it
August
says.
15th.
5 of 5, so it's missing 4 of the pages.
Right. There
So
were other
somewhere on the
applic-
first page, it might tell us that it is
No,
a
no,
minute.
no. Each, okay, to clarify, CDRC, and Doris can verify this, CDRC.
You're giving testimony.
Yes,
I'm
giving
asking a
testimony.
question.
Okay,
I can't tell from this whether you wrote it, the Man in the Moon wrote it, or it's a formal minute from a CDRC meeting. All it says is a CDRC meeting.
right.
When you write up, or someone else writes up what we do tonight, someone's gonna say zoning board meeting. That doesn't mean it's our official minutes. So all I'm asking you is, what is this? And I'm missing the first 4 pages, and it would have been helpful if you would have given us first 4 pages.
Okay, and I can give you the whole book of everything, I'm trying
I
not
just-
to burden you with garbage.
Well,
But,
to
excuse
you
me.
it's garbage, to me it's
Excuse me,
evidence.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
You have to raise your voice.
Well, I want the mic to hear me.
Well, if you get on the mics don't hear.
I don't wanna go back and forth. CDRC, when they meet, they don't meet for 1 application. They can meet for 5 applications. Each application, they try to fit on 1 page, sometimes it could be 2, if they have many, many things. Doris, your attorney, can verify that those are CDRC minutes.
May I correct you, Mr. Levine? You stated before that the village attorney said this. Nowhere does this say that the village attorney
I'm not
said
talking.
it. I agree with you, these are CDRC. They look like CDRC minutes, it's the way they used to be kept.
All right.
But I must disagree because it does not say
No,
that the village attorney,
no, I hope
You
I
did.
didn't imply.
you did.
You did say it.
Well,
You
there's
said
only,
it.
excuse me. Number 1 is, there's only 3 people on CDRC,
That's correct.
okay? Dennis Rocks, our engineer, would never make a comment like that. So the comment either came
Do you
to correct
know
myself.
who made this comment?
No, I wasn't at
Fine,
CDRC.
then just present your
I
evidence.
will make it, I'm in the middle of making a statement. The comment had to come from,
Do you know it's irrelevant where it had to come
well,
from?
no, it's not
It's a
irrelevant. You just
guess,
asked
Mr.
me.
Levine.
It's not a guess.
Of course it is.
No, it isn't. There's only 3 people in the room.
Are you saying Miss Olman made this statement?
I'm saying either Ms. Ullman made the statement or Bob Genisler, a professional planner, made the statement.
And you're saying the third
Because-
person could not possibly be?
He could have made it, but why would the engineer
couldn't
make a
have.
statement like that? I mean, you have to use a little
Bottom
common
line,
sense.
it's a CDRC sum total of the comments.
I would think that when you're presenting
Anyway.
evidence in the future, it would be useful to have had the whole document, or at least the first page, so that we would have a better indication of what this is. You may know what it is,
Okay.
but we do not.
Point of order?
No,
May I?
I'm talking.
Okay.
Was that submitted?
You know, excuse me a minute, Mr. Mitzner, points of order are only valid when the order in which we're proceeding is wrong. There is
I don't know if
nothing
it's wrong, that's why I'm
There is no-
asking.
There's nothing wrong with our
Then
order.
it's a point of information?
Well, then
That
you
wasn't.
wait to your turn. We will give you another turn to speak, and you can ask your questions. But I wish you would not interrupt the people who are speaking. Really. It affects the decorum of the meeting.
Why do I go to meetings and people raise their hands and they're acknowledged with points of information or points of order?
Because this is the meeting of, I don't know who else is doing it, but this is the meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we do things right. And if it's a point of order, there's something wrong with the order of the way we're proceeding, then that's a point of order.
I think there may be, that's
But
why
now
I'm
you
asking.
said it was a point of information.
Well, you didn't accept the order, so I tried
Because
for a
there's nothing
second.
wrong with the order.
How do you know? You don't know what my question is about what the point of order.
Mr. Mitzler, is it a point of the order in which we're conducting this meeting?
Yes,
Then let me hear
it
it.
is. You're demanding evidence from this man for what he said.
That's not an order in which we're conducting this meeting. That's challenging what I've asked for, and you can wait for your turn.
What's an
Go
example
ahead,
of the
Mr.
order then? I'm completely lost here. I don't get an
Okay,
option.
I'm submitting this as Exhibit 2.
Okay. Mr. Levine, I could just ask you in the future, or
I understand.
sometime in the week or two that follows this meeting, if you could present the rest of that document, it would be very useful.
Okay. Back to the agenda. I'm still in the year 2000. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to bring dinner.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry to bring dinner, go ahead.
Yeah, I got breakfast.
Breakfast.
I'll open up the whole pile and I've got more in the car.
We are adjourning at 11.
Okay.
You have an hour and 10 minutes, go ahead.
I don't know how many. Okay, as I explained to you before, those CDRC comments were to aid the planning board for their September 19, 2000 meeting. Now, Mr. Chairman, I did not bring in all of the applications that we heard that night. I only brought in page 31 of 31. Will that suffice, or should I go out and see if I have the other 32 pages outside?
Well, you shouldn't go out to see if you have the other 32 pages, but you should go out at some point after this meeting is adjourned for the evening and present us with at least the first page.
I did, here, okay? This is approved September 6, 2001 minutes, Tuesday, September 19, 2000. You don't have to write all this down because I do have copies for every board member. These are the planning board minutes. I did it right. I did the cover sheet,
You did do it right, thank you.
but I went right to page 31.
Yes.
So I wouldn't bore you with all the other applications. This application.
Sit back and
The
use
mic,
the
the
mic,
mic.
yeah, thank you.
This application was for Steve Stein, SBFAJT Realty Corp., which is better known as Mr. Landscape. I'm gonna read you the minutes because it's a quick paragraph. Informal discussion of concept for office and parking of trucks for landscaping business. Consensus of planning board is that they have no objection, provided the parking area is screened. Applicant will submit site plan and copy of easement to use private road known as Tallman Place. The reason why the planning board wanted the parking lot screened was because it wasn't the parking lot. It was a staging area for the trucks and equipment. I'd like to submit this as number 3. If I'm going out of number, just let me know, because I'm gonna have trouble keeping track.
Mr. Levine, I'm curious about something.
Sure.
Since I wasn't sitting with you folks at that time.
Thank you. Mike.
If you got rid of the warehouses because you didn't want all those heavy trucks, how come you allowed that? With all the heavy trucks in the landscaping business?
Fair.
Just out of curiosity.
No, very fair
You
question.
got a lot of heavy trucks.
Very fair question.
He
Actually,
did say tractor trailers.
yes,
But these are heavy trucks.
He did say tractor trailers.
yes. Actually,
No, he didn't. He said
no,
tractor trailers.
actually, what we were doing with warehousing, in case somebody didn't understand, is, you know, the big tractor trailers, the ones that have even another trailer behind them. That's what we were trying to avoid. They had no advantage to the village. We already permitted them in the PI zone. What advantage does it have to our residents? Landscapers have an advantage. We don't cut our own lawns. You try to get the kid next door to cut your lawn. Doesn't happen anymore, okay?
I got the kid next door to cut my lawn.
Yeah,
He's
Brian
not-
Miller.
He's not a kid. But the landscapers, most of them are running around in pickups. Yes, they do have some dump trucks, but they're a necessary service to our residents. What we were trying to get rid of were the huge tractor trailers, and we still have them. We have a shopping center proposal coming before us. They're gonna have tractor trailers coming in, but we felt, how many do we need, what was the purpose? So that's why, at the time, we just were trying to get rid of the heavy trucking. Okay, when an applicant comes before the planning board, they give us a narrative summary. So September 29th, 2000, R.A. Associates for the Mr. Landscape application gave the planning board a narrative summary of what was gonna go on this site. That some people are saying it was just an office for a landscaper. This document is September 29, 2000 for R.A. Associates. And I'm gonna just read you sections so we don't have to waste time on the whole thing. The applicant is a professional landscaper, which he will use the site for his office. The workers will arrive in the morning in the parking lot and take the tractors with mowers to mow lawns for Mr. Landscape's clients. Then he goes on to the office is manned by one secretary, no retail services provided on the site. Mr. Landscaper will spend most of his time contacting his clients and provide estimates to prospective clients. All grass clippings will be dumped at the landfill. The landscape business is seasonal, starts from April, ends by November. Therefore, Mr. Landscape will provide snow plowing service in the winter months. Security fences with 16-foot wide gate is proposed around the parking lot to protect the equipment from being stolen. So right there, it tells you nobody was being fooled. The planning board knew what we were approving.
Microphone.
This was a professional landscape operation. I'd like to submit this as number 4. Now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Levine, is your point that the planning board, I don't really need to be that close to you, you can step back, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, do you have a problem?
I have lots of problems.
I know that,
Fine.
but do you have a problem with me?
No.
Okay,
You have a problem with me?
no, I don't,
All right.
no,
So we get along.
no.
Then you have a problem with me.
All right,
Excuse
that's
me.
enough.
You know, behave yourself,
I
you're a
am.
grown up.
Yes.
Mr.
I didn't
Levine,
interrupt this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
She
Levine.
attacked me.
No, she attacked me, but that's
Okay.
okay. I
I
accept.
feel
I
attacked.
just asked you to move back.
Okay.
It bothers me too.
I saw you make a
Well,
face at her.
He's behind me, he saw me make a.
Yeah, I did, I
Mr.
can see you
Burns,
from this angle,
Very
my friend.
intuitive.
That's why I'm sitting
Gentlemen,
here.
can you please
Hey,
control
this is
yourself?
why I don't like interruptions when someone's speaking,
Thank you, Mr.
even
Chairman.
for any other points. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
If
So,
she has a right to
Mr.
ask. a-
Levine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Levine,
Yeah.
is your point that the planning board took it upon itself to say that landscaping businesses were permitted in the LO zone?
That's one point. And excuse me, we did not
take it upon ourselves. We have professionals advising us. We have professionals advising us every step of the way. Same as your board.
So, what professional advised you that a landscaping business is permitted in an LO zone? I'm just trying to understand what your point is.
Okay,
right?
but
So-
no, that's a fair
Yeah.
question, except I answered that with the CDRC minutes. Obviously, I'm not making myself
Well,
clear.
right now, because
I-
it
we were- I was-
can't be proven what those really are, I'm asking you.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ullman already told you, they look like CDRC minutes. If you feel that I'm not giving you accurate testimony.
You're gonna give us the rest of the stuff. We will determine what it is.
Fine, thank you.
All right? It's a good question.
Okay.
I understand.
No, look, I can understand you
Kathleen,
questioning it, I should
let's
have
give
brought
him a
the
little
cover
leeway.
sheet.
Let's give him a little, we'd just like you to get to the point. You seem to be
Well-
addressing on what the planning board did, but that's fine.
I'm gonna
Go
get,
ahead.
I'm trying, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I am trying to move along.
Giving you the floor.
I'm getting interrupted constantly. And I don't mind the question. I have no idea, these mystery people, and I don't mind the questions. If anybody has a question.
Mark,
There you go.
please,
Okay, continue.
continue.
Thank you. Miss-
Miss-
Excuse me, you can't hear me?
No, but.
Oh, come on.
Okay, now, Mr. Chairman. So I don't have to pick that back up because I was interrupted. Does everybody remember the description that Mr. Landscape gave for his operation?
We have it. You're gonna give it to us.
Yes, but do you remember what I just said? Snow plowing?
Please continue.
Okay, I am continuing.
We don't have to take a test on memory.
Well, I'm not so sure.
That's insulting.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Acceptable.
Okay. At the September zoning board meeting, I'm gonna just go a little off for 2 seconds. Because something that you said, Mr. Chairman, at the September,
That would be September of this year,
yes, last month,
last month.
at your zoning board meeting.
Right.
Thank you for
The one
clarifying.
that you wanted to speak at because you thought you wouldn't be here tonight. Go ahead.
September
It's
2011.
a different matter. Go ahead.
You stated that the Steve's Lawns application and the Mr. Landscape application are not similar at all, have nothing in common. So I'm just bringing this in. This is the Steve's Lawns application, January 15th, 2008, to the planning board, narrative summary. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, I'm gonna just go through this paragraph, which is underlined for you in your packets also.
Why don't you give it to me? Why don't you give it to me?
I'm gonna read it in.
Says, workers will arrive in the morning and take mowers and assorted equipment to attend to the needs of my business clients. The office is intended to be manned, women by about 10 people. The landscape business is seasonal and starts in late March and April, and generally ends in November and December. Therefore, my business will provide snow plowing, etc. services in the winter months. Do you want to read into the record?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And it is similar to what, we will compare it to the two, but they are similar.
Thank you.
They sound similar.
Thank you for recognizing
Sure.
that,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. I'd like to present this as item number 5 to the record. Okay. Now,
I'm just trying to get through it.
now, I understand.
We're gonna read it, we're not deciding.
Okay, no,
We're gonna read your stuff, so if it helps, I can read it.
Mr. Chairman, I did not object to what you did. Thank you. Going back to, is it a house or is it a full landscaper operation? Because people keep saying it's just an office. Okay, the Volunteer Ambulance Corps, October 23rd, 2000, for SBFAJT Realty Corp. This
this letter is October 23rd, 2000, received by the village October 26th, 2000. Although it is not indicated on the drawing, we assume that the equipment storage and loading and unloading will be in the rear where the 40-foot parking spaces are shown. Showing that the ambulance corps knew this was a full landscaper use. This is exhibit number 6. Okay, when the planning board hears applications, it goes to Rockland County Department of Planning.
You know, in fairness, it shows what it shows. I don't know what a full landscaping use is. I don't know if they knew if they're storing the same kind of material that's being stored on the.
No, I am not comparing that one use is identical to another use.
You just said it's a full landscaping use. Does it say that in there? Full landscaping use, whatever that means?
Well,
I don't know what it means.
that has no meaning. But,
I agree with you.
okay,
It has no meaning.
okay.
But you said it.
Okay, for clarification, thank you. If it's not clear, I want to be clear. People have been saying that this, 11 years ago,
This is Mr. Landscape's
Mr.
application.
Landscape's plan
Yes.
was only for a landscaper's office, and that's it. And what I am showing here, that it was more than an office, period.
The application to whom? To the planning board or to the zoning
To
board?
the planning board,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just talking planning board,
All right.
and that's fine, the questions are fine. Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Am I gonna be yelled at?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, same application, October 31st, 2000, Rockland County Department of Planning, SBFAJT Realty Corp., which is Mr. Landscape, in an LO zone. Landscaping equipment will be stored on the site. It's noted from Rockland County Planning. This is exhibit number 7?
6. I think. 7?
7.
I missed one.
I can go back.
No.
Okay,
How many you got, just out of curiosity?
I don't know. I put the time in, and I appreciate you listening. I am trying to,
No explanation, just go.
okay. Okay, what I have here is another document. What happened at the time? This document is CDRC meeting, October 17th, 2000. Steve Stein, SBFAJT Realty Corp. Public hearing, LO zone. CDRC notes, there's 20 of them.
Can I see it? I just had the same issue with this that I had before.
I understand, Mr. Chairman.
So
and I
just
knew
apply
you-
the first page.
And I knew you would.
So it says applicant will need both variance for lot area and should be referred to ZBA. And applicant wishes to
You don't have to
know
read
if
all
barbed
20,
wire
I-
fencing is allowed. I'm just reading what you
Oh,
highlighted.
okay, thank you. Then-
I assume that's all you want.
What's the date of
Right.
it?
The
Yes.
date of this is October 17, 2000. We'll have copies of it, and we will read the whole thing.
Okay. Now, what I'd like the board to note on this was number 2, applicant will need both
I
variances.
just read that.
Huh?
I just
Yes,
read that.
yes,
Right,
but I'm
okay.
repeating it. It should be referred to ZBA, and the reason why I'm repeating it is there was never a discussion of use. That was clarified right from the start. That's number 8. Next I have November 2nd, 2000. Planning board meeting. Minutes. They were stamped approved March 1st, 2001. For Steve Stein, SBFAJT Realty Corp. in an LO zone. The notes in the minutes reflect the letter from the ambulance corps and Walter Morris, who's the fire inspector. Also, Mr. Rubin read the letter from the ambulance corps, which referred to the equipment storage and loading and unloading in the rear parking lot. I'll leave it at that. I'm gonna submit this as number 8, 9. We're moving on. Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions with what the planning board did and why we did it?
We'll read the material. If
Okay.
we just listen to you tonight,
Yeah.
if we have questions, we'll jump in. Everyone knows they can just jump in.
Okay.
I don't think you have to ask if they have
Now
any
I'm gonna
questions. We will
change-
jump in if we have
I'm
them.
gonna change off a little. And the
Microphone.
planning board referred Mr. Landscape to the zoning board. At the time, Richard Miller was on the board, Thomas Banta was on the board. Okay? This is the notice of posting for the zoning board to be published in the Journal News on Sunday, December 3rd, 2000. This is the legal notice to the zoning board for Mr. Landscape in an LO zoning district. The date down here, it's dated November 27th, 2000. Would you like to see?
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
That's number
10.
10? Okay, zoning board of appeals meeting, agenda, dated December 14th, 2000. Richard Miller was present, Tom Banta was present. The application, one of the applications on the agenda was for Steve Stein, SBF AJT Realty. Applicant was in an LO zoning district.
Thank you. Number 11.
Okay. Right now I have letter from Rockland County Department of Planning dated December 14th, 2000 to the Chestnut Ridge Zoning Board of Appeals. The item is SBFAJT Realty Corp., which is Mr. Landscape, seeking variances in a laboratory office LO zoning district. They had really no objections.
Variance on 1.15 acres in an LO zoning district to allow less than the allowed lot area and waiver a requirement to pave an expansion to a parking lot. No objection to the extension of a parking lot. Yeah, just clarifying what they did.
Yeah, that's fine. My thing is, there was no question of use, and it was an LO zone. And that was item, I think you
10,
stated.
11, that was 11.
Okay.
That was
12. That was 12.
That was 12, sorry.
Thank you.
A lucky number. Go ahead.
Okay, now, I assume Mr. Landscape got his variances, he went back to the planning board. I have a planning board agenda dated February 1st, 2001, Steve Stein, SBF AJT Realty Corp., known as Mr. Landscape. It was adjourned from January 4th, 2001. L.O. Zone. Wanna look?
This is 13, right?
Yes.
Had to do with the existing building to be used as office space by professional landscaping company, Hello Zone. Office space. Go ahead.
Now, what I have here is a piece of a plan. I didn't want to bring you the whole plan, but I figured this might help you a little. Because what the plan has on it, what a plan has is a revisions box. So that when the planning board or any board's reviewing, you can look through the revisions and see the history.
What's the date of that?
The last page.
This plan was received by the village. It's stamped, received by the village, January 22nd, 2002. Last revised 1/17/02.
That's it.
As soon as I'm done, can I just go?
Yeah.
Okay. What I highlighted here is February 14th, 01. The applicant has marked planning board approval. He was approved for this finally. And immediately, and I don't.
For the record, this, you're holding up Exhibit 1.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. He was approved for Exhibit 1. You get paid by the word.
No.
You can keep going.
No way. Because you want to know something, Mr. Chairman, can we recess for 10 seconds?
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Everybody's.
We stop at 11.
Yeah, he stepped out, so he wasn't here.
Now, remember, Cheryl, Raj used to turn them over 3 or 4 times. I'm only joking. Don't do that.
Later, he submitted one afterwards. That was this was the first one. Both. He changed it. This was, the first one was to keep the original building. And that's when he went to the planning board, and he went to the ZBA, the variances, the bulk variances. And that was finally approved by the board. Then, later on, he came back, because he decided that it was not feasible to
Seen this little bit, you sent a lot of people to the
and he was
bathroom.
gonna construct a new building.
Sure it has.
This went on for years. Yeah, here, this one, I'll show you.
Jimmy doesn't see that.
Let's see.
He doesn't like to prove
Yeah, see, this is the new one, this was August 2002. He changed it, because he decided that the old building was too beat up,
Amazing.
and so then he submitted a
And
new
there's three in here
application.
too.
I know.
Well, it revised, but it was revised. And with the new office,
Oh, it comes up
and
here.
proposed storage, and then it became.
Take over.
And he says,
This and this.
yeah.
But I, that.
This is what he had. And this was approved later on, I mean, after, This is August, this is the revision, August 2002.
It's a slow process.
This was the new
Right.
application.
I'm trying to be as
Yeah, no,
honest and as accurate, so.
Can we get on the record?
No, not yet.
I'll add
Yeah.
extra words to you.
No, what he's trying to say is that the office, it was an office, but because of the equipment storage, it made it a landscaping operation.
Full landscape.
That's what he's saying. He's saying that the office plus the equipment part made it a landscaping.
That was the one I spoke. I spelled my
That's
words
wrong,
already.
right?
Because I don't usually.
Because he just said it's not exactly the same as the current application, where it has materials and everything.
I think my next sentence moves up to more present.
You can sense there's a little acrimony.
These before a formal board, this is a formal meeting, and people should be provided with the respect that goes with the position. And I would never deign to speak to the planning board the way he speaks to this board. That's just how I feel.
Excuse me.
Freedom of speech.
She doesn't like the way you're speaking to the board.
Mark, it had, this is, you walked into the end of a conversation, it had nothing to do with you. Right.
Thank you.
Had nothing to do with him.
Nothing.
You can take it your word, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Okay, just to spin back 1 second where I was, February 14, 2001, planning board approval. Right after, within days, maybe a month, Mr. Landscape found out that converting that house into an office wasn't feasible. Is it starting to bring some memories from, thank you. Okay, it wasn't feasible. It was too much money to convert the house. So after he received the approval, within days, he came back to the board. And he wanted more towards what you see today. Of course, in the planning process, these things are constantly shifting. It's not only Mr. Landscape, it's every applicant. So on 5601, we were already entertaining. Keep in mind, February 14th, we gave approval for Exhibit 1. Less than...
Which year?
I'm sorry, 2001.
February?
February 14th, 2001, planning board approval. By May 6th, 2001, he was already modifying the plan, revised it, which meant, if you're familiar with the process, he had to come into CDRC informally, the planning board informally, so it had to be, right after he got his approval, he was back, and 5-6 already had the plans drawn, ready to go, okay? That's 5601. 61001, he moved the new building west. 81601, site plan for proposed new building again, because obviously...
What is the point that you kept moving the building? I mean, you've made the point over and over again that
Well, basically...
it's a landscaping use.
Yes.
Or something, and no one's questioning the use.
Right.
You seem to be stressing that he came by and moved the building. Why is that relevant?
He came, no, I'm not stressing what he did. He didn't do anything different than any other applicant would do. But what he did was he made a change in his application. He was now going to tear down the house. Maybe I wasn't clear. He was now going to tear down the house and put in the full garage for his equipment and everything. And if you remember, back in 2001 with landscapers, they didn't have these closed trailers that you see driving up and down the road. They were all open trailers. So he wanted his trucks back there. He actually told us, which he never did, he was gonna back the trailers into the building and leave them there overnight for safety reasons. But I guess he found other uses for the building. And also, over the years, landscapers have gone to enclosed trailers. Anyway, exhibit, you want to see this? 14, for the record.
14, 15?
14.
New buildings, back to the zoning board. We're now not at the planning board, we're back to the zoning board. Zoning board application, project name, SBF AJT Realty, which we all know is Mr. Landscape. Received by the village, September 20th, 2001. Zoning district, LO. Due to the extreme costs in renovating the existing property, the applicant has decided to build a new office and a garage, basically, is what he is saying. Total size of the building will be office 1,800 square feet, garage 4,000 square feet, if that means anything. To the zoning board, LO zone, received by the village September 20th, 2001. Would you like to see this, Mr. Chairman? Basically, what I'm trying to show the board, and I'll just repeat it, is that this use was always an accepted use in the yellow zone. Not only by the planning board, by both boards, by the village consultants, by everybody. We never questioned a landscaper's use until a landscaper bought property next to Mr. Tony Gates. Tony Gates and I'll guess G-A-E-S-S.
G-A-E-S-S.
Next item. September 2000. Public hearing notice. The date looks like September 23rd, definitely 2001. Public hearing notice for SBF AJT Realty Corp., which is Mr. Landscape. This is a public hearing notice from the zoning board. I won't go into the whole thing.
We submitted nothing in it about the use,
There's nothing, well,
other than the fact that it's an office building and a garage.
well, it's office building, garage, and storage.
Okay.
I'll let you see it, in an LO zoning district. This was faxed to Sandy Rosen, who was the village clerk treasurer, in September 2001, and it was faxed from the Ullman law offices.
That was 16, this is 17.
That was.
That was 16.
It's still 16.
That's 16?
Yes, you're holding 17.
Mr. Landscape received his variances in the yellow zone. Back
to the planning board. CDRC meeting. May 23rd, 2000. For,
How can we back to the planning board? It was May 23rd, 2000, when you just showed.
2000.
I'm sorry, thank you, thank
Would
you.
Please go back to the mic.
Yes, I'm sorry, you're right,
2000.
2002.
How do you catch it?
Thank you for correcting me. Thank you. I'm getting tired too. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me. I'm getting tired. I've worked all day too. You're retired.
Mr. Please.
Okay. CDRC meeting, May 23rd, 2002. Steve Stein, SBFAJT Realty Corp., better known as Mr. Landscape. Existing building to be demolished and new building with garage proposed. LO zone, CDRC meeting.
What is that?
What?
What is that?
This is the CDRC meeting minutes,
Okay.
okay, which were reviewed by Doris Ullman and approved on by Doris Ullman on 5/29/02.
That contains an error. If I
I,
approved it, I made a mistake. That was not an LO zone in May of 2002.
I'm just giving.
That was a PI zone in 2000 in May.
I'm giving.
I'm just pointing out an error. I made a mistake. You should be happy.
I'm gonna get into that later. I'll get into that later. Because
You always are.
Because I do not agree with that statement, but I'm not going to start debating right now.
Could have fooled me.
I don't, Mr. Chairman, I don't think I've been debating.
Go
with
ahead.
Mr.
anybody.
Levine, we don't have to debate it. All we have to do is ask the clerk to give us the record as to when the local law
Excuse me,
was
Doc-
adopted.
Doc-
That's all.
Mrs. Ullman, please, I have a memory of what happened, you have a memory of what happened.
No, I have a law.
Right, and so do I. Right now, I am just showing facts.
Well, that's why I
On the record.
pointed out your
I don't-
fact is
I-
incorrect.
In your opinion, please state.
Okay.
Come on, let's go.
That's the next,
We have both of you on the record.
What, yes, what
Go ahead.
number? are
That
we
was
at?
17.
17.
It's 18.
18?
You're holding 18.
I'm holding 18. Okay. June 6, 2002. Planning Board meeting agenda. Steve Stein, SBFAJT Realty Corp. Preliminary revised site plan. To speed things up, same night. That was item number 2 on the agenda. Same night, item number 3 on the agenda is final revised site plan. Both of them say the same thing, so I'm only gonna read one of them. Existing building to be demolished and new building with garage proposed. Office space and storage by professional landscaping company. Both of them state Zone LO.
That must be another mistake.
Good.
Okay, that's exhibit number 18. Planning board agenda, planning board meeting, August 1st, 2002. Steve Stein, SBFAJT Realty Corp. Item 1 and item 2. Item 1 is preliminary, item 2 is final. Same thing, existing building to be demolished, and new building with garage proposed to be used as office space and storage by a professional landscaping company. LO zone.
19.
Okay. Exhibit 19. Just so we don't get confused, that was planning board. Anybody have any questions?
We already went through that.
Well, I just want to make sure. Okay, now we're gonna change a little. I'm gonna try to get off of Mr. Landscape. Biosphere. Zoning Board of Appeals granted the following variances on May 9th, 2002. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to read the whole thing. I am going to give it to you. It is on any plan that Biosphere has. These are stamped right on the plans. But you will get copies, but I do want to read certain points. Again, Zoning Board of Appeals, May 9, 2002. Description of property, LO zone. Okay? Just some of the things that were said at your meeting. Well, the zoning board meeting at the time. That the proposed use is a permitted use in the zone. That the property is currently non-conforming because it is a residential use.
In the
Yeah, but I just want to, would you like to see it as I'm reading it, or? Okay. I was just offering it. That the property is currently non-conforming because it is a residential use in an LO zone. Then I'm going to skip all the stuff, you'll have your own chance to read it. But I just want to read a couple points. Whereas, the application submitted to the zoning board states that the applicant proposed to purchase the site, which is 1.2 acres, and the application seeks variances to permit the existing house to remain and to be converted to an architectural office for landscape design and project management, and to add 10 parking spaces, areas for equipment and landscape material storage, I'm sorry, I don't want to misstate, and landscape material storage, and a horticultural display garden to the site. And whereas the application submitted contains a narrative that, 1, describes the business staff and equipment, including 2 dump trucks, 2 trailers, 2 pickup trucks, 2 bobcats, and a small excavator that will be parked on site. 2, describes the proposed design, which includes separating office parking from truck and equipment parking, which increases the safety of the site. Again, I'm not going to read, you'll have a chance to read it. I'm just highlighting points that I feel are important. To summarize, the property will be brought more into conformity with the character of the neighborhood since what is now a legally non-conforming use will be changed to a conforming use. Meaning the residence, as it stated in the beginning, the property is currently a non-conforming because it's a residential use in an LO zone.
20, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was, I have that as 19.
No,
20.
20. Wrong.
Oh, sorry.
Can I see that one after that?
You're right. I have 2 19s.
Go ahead. I'm multitasking. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I just wanted everybody's attention on, but that's okay. Anyway, biosphere. Okay. We're going back to planning board, so making biosphere fast. That's
Can I ask
basically.
you something about this?
Sure. That's your resolution
I know what it is.
that I took off of the
Move back,
minutes.
move back. States that the, whereas clause states that the proposed.
You have to speak up, Mr. Chairman, because I cannot hear.
States that the proposed 40 feet by 65 feet equipment storage and maintenance area will be for temporary equipment storage, since most of the equipment is normally on job sites. States the storage and maintenance area will not be used to store materials or inventory. You didn't read that part. I thought it might be significant or something.
Well, obviously with any landscaper, they don't try to keep their equipment on site because they're not making
It
any
says
money.
materials and inventory. Says that the storage and maintenance area will not be used to store materials or inventory. You failed to read that part.
Because he already says in the other part, you said in your other part, that he's storing materials on the site. This was your resolution, Mr. Chairman, your zoning.
I'm reading the whereas clause from the
That- that-
resolution. I'm
that-
just saying you omitted that part.
Excuse
I'm
me.
adding it to the record.
That's fine. I didn't admit anything. I am giving you, providing you the entire document.
Go ahead.
It's been on record
Go ahead.
for 9 years. Okay, back to CDRC.
Wait, what was, exhibit 21 was something from the planning board, you said?
That's what he has now, the CDRC.
Oh, CDRC.
Those two the
same? I thought,
Yes.
Yes.
all right, CDRC.
Are you on the third for that?
No, I just want to make sure these are the same ones for the
Yeah,
purposes.
that's okay. If Kathy passes it down, that will be exhibit number 20.
Right.
I'm fine. I'm ready. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Exhibit number 21. CDRC meeting, Tuesday, June 14th, 2005. Biosphere, preliminary site plan, zone LO. Excuse me?
It sounds like she keeps getting that zone wrong, or somebody does.
Well, if we're that, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if we're that incompetent and our staff, our professional staff is that incompetent, there's something wrong. That wasn't the case.
Okay.
Okay.
So was it an LO zone or was it a PI zone?
I'm not gonna get into that at this time.
I'm just asking you a question now. Was it
Excuse
an LO zone at that point or was it a PI zone at that point?
All the records say
For
I'm
the-
not talking to you.
no. I'm sorry.
For the record, my opinion and the material I have and my recollection that what happened at the time, it was still an LO zone. I'm not this incompetent, and I'm sure you're.
I'm not saying anyone's incompetent. I've heard a statement that at earlier point in time, it was changed to a PI zone. I'm asking you
Different opinion.
whether it was. So you have an opinion that says it was still an LO zone. That's fine. You put it in the record. Next.
Okay. I can explain later why I have that opinion. CDRC, Tuesday, June 14th, 2005, Biosphere preliminary site plan, Zone LO. Comment number 1 from CDRC, which is our village attorney, our village planner, and our village engineer. Current zone is LO, not residential. Will update.
Another mistake.
Do we actually have an exact date as to when that zone became from,
I don't want to get into that at this stage. I'd like to finish my.
I know, but that's important
He's asking
for us
you a
to
question.
define
Do
where
you
that
have
is.
a date when
Okay,
it went from an LO zone to a PI zone? Did it ever?
yes.
You did?
Yes, I believe it did.
You do believe
Yes.
it? Can you tell us the date you believe that?
I cannot give you, I cannot give you an exact date, but if you want me to stop for a second, I will. Okay. This is my memory.
Speaker.
I do, and I've been looking for it, have a piece of paper, but the village board passed the law by resolution. I'm not gonna even go there. I'll rely on Doris for that. Do you remember when they passed the law by resolution?
Remember? No.
Okay. But the village board.
But I have a copy of it.
Okay, but would it be fair to say sometime in the year 2000?
No.
No.
No. Okay. Okay.
It was in the year 2002.
2000, I'm sorry, did I confuse dates again?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I-
In the year, sometime in the year 2002. And I'll go along with that.
I believe, go ahead.
Okay. A law is not official until it is approved with the Secretary of State and comes back to the village. Understand something, because there was confusion at the time. And don't think I wasn't asking the questions at the time. Why are we still in LO zone? Okay, we didn't hear back from the Secretary of State. Now, whether it was a mistake that it was never sent out, that one person thought that one person sent it and didn't send it, I can't answer that. Also, understand the time period we were involved in. 9/11. There was a lot going on in New York State. There was tremendous confusion with all of our lives. So, could a mix-up have happened? My recollection is that over the time period, I kept asking that question, hasn't this zone changed? And I was told, not yet. Because it doesn't change until we get the official whatever paperwork from the Secretary of State. But the village board did pass it, something in 2002, which can be documented. I won't argue that.
All right, go back to your presentation. Thank you for answering.
Did that clarify a little bit? Want a break? July 19th, 2005, CDRC meeting for the planning board. Biosphere preliminary site plan. July 19th, 2005, LO zone. This is CDRC minutes edited by Doris Ullman.
Yes.
Again, CDRC meeting, December 13th, 2005. Biosphere, preliminary site plan, LO zone. The only item that I'll bring to your attention, but we all know it was a landscaper use, Biosphere. We know that Mr. Landscape, but the number 4, that Biosphere and Mr. Landscape's trucks, that they were gonna do the turning radius, but we don't even have to go there because we know it was a landscape use. And these CDRC minutes of December 13, 2005 were edited by Doris Ullman.
Still in the LO zone.
That's exhibit number.
I just to remind you, you will provide us with the first pages of these.
I will try, Mr. Chairman. I can guarantee you, it was hard enough doing the copies,
never mind sitting there trying to type up false documents. I'm not saying you're applying that, but I did my best to just try to show this board past history.
We're all part of the village records, not ours.
And it all came from village files.
You're presenting evidence, the way to present evidence.
I am not gonna dispute you.
Demonstrating, not from your
I-
word, especially a printed minute,
I
that's where
actually,
it came from.
Mr. Chairman, I actually
I
agree
don't
with
think
you.
I ever suggested you are preparing the document.
Again, I'm sorry, I'm tired. I apologize. Okay. Somebody take the rest of my papers?
Yeah, I have them over here.
Okay, look. And Mr. Lippert referred to Paul Baum in his speech. As you know, Doris is no longer the planning board attorney, we now have Paul Baum. Paul Baum walked into a pile of, he didn't know what he was getting himself into, made some statements, and then decided to look into what he was talking about. Anyway, memorandum from Paul S. Baum, date October 13th, 2009. Are you finished?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I have another copy. Just want to keep the packet all together.
Yeah, let me go back on something.
Sure.
It's in addition to the others. I got one right?
Is there a problem, Mr. Chairman? No.
No problem. Just trying to get the record straight.
Okay.
Go ahead. We're gonna adjourn in 6 minutes.
Excuse me?
We're going to adjourn in about 6 minutes.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
You just have to come back to another meeting.
Can I get my point before though?
Go ahead.
Stop them in 5 minutes.
Go ahead. I know, go
But
ahead. Don't
I'd like everybody.
They multitask. I want to get through. We're gonna read it. They're gonna listen to it. Go ahead. All right. He's
Okay.
waiting for your undivided attention.
You have it.
Thank you. Okay, anyway, as I explained before, we have a new planning board attorney, Paul Baum, on the planning board. Anyway, this is a memorandum to the Village of Chestnut Ridge Planning Board, date October 13th, 2009. It's the Steve's Lawn application for preliminary site plan. Again, I'm gonna just read parts. If I miss something, you'll be able to
You'll read it.
pick it up.
You'll
Yes.
see that.
And Mr. Chairman, I hope everybody does read the documents. Okay. At the time
I prepared the memorandum. I was not privy to the history of this property or the other site plan applications for landscape offices in the village. I have since reviewed the files for the other properties, in parentheses, Allgreen, Mr. Landscape, and Biosphere, close parentheses, and have consulted with the village attorney. The proposed use of the property is an office and storage of landscaping equipment and materials. The use is the same as Allgreen, in parentheses, he's describing Allgreen, office and storage of landscape equipment and materials. Mr. Landscape, he now in parentheses describes Mr. Landscape, office, storage, and garage. And Biosphere, and he describes Biosphere, office and storage. These other applications were permitted to proceed under the office and storage use, which is a permitted use in the LO zoning district, and have already received preliminary site plan approval. Then I'm going to skip down 2 paragraphs. By the way, all the documents you'll be receiving are also highlighted. They should be highlighted exactly the same way, so you know what I read to you and what I didn't read to you. Biosphere received variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals on May 8th, 2002, which is the document that I've already presented to this board. The Zoning Board resolution of approval specifically notes that the use of the premises is a permitted use in the zone. Page 2. Based upon the history of these other projects and the interpretation applied, I am of the opinion that the proposed use by Steve's Lawns as an office and storage of landscape equipment and materials is a permitted use in the LO zone. Okay. I'm going to detach this so that there's no confusion. I have
Wait, why are you detaching?
Because
Wait,
I'm
before you
going to
detach.
explain, Mr. Chairman.
We should
Okay.
explain before you detach.
No, you'll understand. This is the memorandum. It was a 2-page memorandum. What I had stapled to it was planning board minutes and a statement from Mr. Paul Dow. So I don't think it's appropriate to submit them both as one exhibit. It might be confusing, so I want to separate them, and I want to have this as an exhibit number, excuse me?
24.
24.
Go ahead.
Okay, now this really, and I'll agree with you when you yell at me, is not acceptable.
Already wrote it down.
Huh? You wrote it
Already
down.
wrote it down as
Thank
an
you.
exhibit.
Thank you. I will definitely, this is not acceptable. What I am giving you here is page 3 of planning board minutes that don't contain a cover sheet, don't contain a date, and it's just page 3. I will definitely try to supply you with the full minutes. But this is what Mr. Lippert, I believe, but correct me if I'm wrong, was stating he didn't have the document because, in fact, I was not going to read this part into the minutes, and I might not. Scott Lippert, representing Chestnut Ridge Associates, 21 Main Street, Hackensack, New Jersey, pointed out that this particular property has been excluded from the recently adopted zoning code, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what I've highlighted here, which Mr. Lippert was referring to, I believe this is what you're referring to, this.
Why don't you
I'm
just?
not here to answer your questions.
Okay.
He's not here for your witness.
Okay. I'm just trying to be
You
helpful.
want to ask him a question? you
No,
can.
that's okay. I was just trying to be helpful,
I know.
because he was looking for this page.
What would
and
be
he
helpful
didn't
is
have
if
it.
you just tell us what.
Okay. Mr. Baum replied to Mr. Lippert that this is an Mr. Baum replied that as this application is actively before the planning board, the village board chose to exempt it, allowing it to proceed as an office with accessory storage for landscaping material similar to Biosphere, Mr. Landscape, and all green applications.
What's the date of those minutes?
Excuse me.
What's the date of those minutes?
Excuse me.
Mr. Lippert, I already stated,
I'm sorry.
I don't have it.
I got carried
In
away.
any
will supply
way
it to the
relevant
board.
to
I
this
will
meeting,
supply it
except
to the
as
board if you need
a
it.
public member, you are not part of this board. I'd appreciate if you keep your comments to yourself. I will take care of what's happening.
We could give him the same reprimand?
He knows what I'm gonna say.
Okay, Larry.
Go ahead.
But to Mr. Lippert, if you do want it, I will try to, because I'm gonna have to do it for the board. So the board will have it and you'll get it. The
Ms.
date
Levine,
and everything.
excuse me, who, you're reading a
Well, he
statement?
said it, he realized it's
Mr. Baum.
unacceptable.
Oh, for
He's reading
Mr. Baum?
Baum's
Yes,
comment.
Okay.
the
Can I
first-
see that, please?
let me just read the
Let me
last
look at it
sentence.
first. Let me look at it first.
It's horrible, I agree with you.
Well, because we don't know what it is, but
Right.
may I read it for you? Do you mind if I read it?
Sure.
I'll read it over.
As long as it's loud.
Mr. Barrow replied that as this application is actively before the planning board, the village board chose to exempt it, allowing it to proceed as an office with accessory storage for landscaping materials similar to Biosphere, Mr. Landscape, and all green applications. This would allow the applicant to adhere to the less strict requirements. There's no date on this, and we will get that at some point.
We don't know who it was. We don't know who.
We don't know anything, because this,
Shouldn't even read it.
just a piece of paper.
Well, he is responding to Mr. Lippert.
We don't know.
No, it says it.
Well, it does say,
And
it
slack
does
it.
say, Mr. Lippert, representing Chester Ridge Associates, pointed out that this particular property has been excluded from the recently adopted zoning code amendment, which allows landscape contractors as a permitted use in LO and PI zones. Mr. Lippert felt that since the village board deliberately exempted this property from the law, he interpreted this deliberate action as the board saying this was not a permitted use. Mr. Baum, however, replied that his view was that as this application, I'm reading it again, is actively before the planning board, the village board chose to exempt it, allowing it to proceed as an office with accessory storage for landscaping materials similar to the Biosphere, Mr. Landscape, and all green applications. This would allow the applicant, which is Steve Lawn,
Now I know, because we didn't read all of that.
to adhere to the less strict requirements.
Mr. Chairman, I really think it's important just to state that that appears to be a piece of the planning board minutes. I don't think either Mr. Lippert nor Mr. Baum knew the reasons why the village board adopted the law as it did. Neither one of them was there during the preparation of the law, nor during the discussions as to why it was done. And I think we've got to make it clear so that there's no question that neither one of them, maybe they're both right, maybe neither one of them is right. But that appears to be a piece of the planning board minutes. And it's what was said at the planning board, not to be confused with what the actual fact is.
Well, I did say when I read it, I did add a bit editorial comment, because as I was reading it, it struck me that this was Mr. Baum's view.
Yes,
And
I think that's very important.
Mr. Please, I have asked you
Perez.
over and over again.
I heard you,
I
Mr.
didn't
Chairman.
know,
Thank you.
I didn't know who you were referring to, Doris, when you said they.
didn't know about.
You mean
the meeting.
Mr.
Neither
Lippert,
Mr.
Mr.
Lippert nor Mr. Bauer.
Oh, because I was fully aware of.
I wasn't talking about
Okay,
you.
Okay. In
So why
fact,
don't you-
I wanted to clarify that that is not to be taken as fact, but only as something that came from the minutes
yes,
of the
yes,
planning
it's in
board.
the planning board minutes. But, and also,
Just
Mr.
do us a favor on that one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
in my packet, I might have the full set of minutes. If I don't have it in my packet, I have it outside. If you want me to take the time, I will give you the full set of minutes,
Actually,
but in respect to the board,
Bring it in next time.
I'll bring it in next time.
that would be sufficient to supply it to Ms. Gail,
But I'd still
or
like
Ms.
this
Veronica,
as one of my.
as soon as you
exhibits.
can, to supply the rest of that particular document. That would be
Yes,
very
yes,
useful.
and
But
I-
it will still
and
put
I-
it in as one of your exhibits.
I fully agree with you, it was not an appropriate document,
Okay.
but I like it as an exhibit.
Yes, I said it's okay.
Now, Bart,
Subject to, what?
5?
Well, subject to supplying the rest of it so we have a date on it, and then we have a more official view as to where it is.
Absolutely.
But it is 11:05, I did say we were gonna adjourn at 11.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in that case, I finished.
You have
this-
more?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well,
But I have a lot more history, but at this point, I think I've covered enough bases to give the board some homework, and I'm willing to adjourn to whenever you want to, and
well, I'm glad you gave us permission to adjourn.
I really appreciate it. The only thing I'll ask you for permission for is to supply your board members with the documents that I just read.
Of course.
I can do that now, but you can proceed.
Now, you wanna do it?
Well, you can proceed with your adjournment. I'm gonna step down
Oh,
and
okay.
I just want to hand it out.
Okay.
That's okay.
The next, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn the hearing, public hearings on items 2, 30 Sapphire Lane, Steve's Lawn, and item 3, Chestnut Ridge Associates, until November 14th, which is not the second Thursday. For those of you who are used to seeing us meet on the second Thursday, in November, we are meeting on the second Tuesday.
Third Tuesday.
Thursday, Tuesday.
It would be the third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday. Let me check.
November 14th,
Third
Mr.
Tuesday?
Chairman?
You're right, the third Tuesday, that'd be, no, the 14th is a Monday, I have the wrong day, it's the 15th. I'm sorry. That would be the third Tuesday,
Yes.
the 15th. No. Okay,
Regular time.
8 PM.
8 PM. I have a motion to adjourn this meeting of the zoning board of appeals until November 15th, Tuesday at 8 PM.
I make the motion.
Mr. Banta made the motion,
I'll second.
Dominic seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Any contrary minded? Those matters are adjourned. Now, I want to adjourn the, actually, I said that wrong. I wanted to adjourn those matters. I think I said it right in the first place, but then I may have restated it wrong. But now I want a motion to adjourn. So the first motion was to adjourn those matters. Now I want a motion to adjourn this meeting. There are other things that I do want to take up, but we'll wait for the next meeting of the zoning board. So let's adjourn this meeting of the zoning board again until Tuesday, November 15th at 8 o'clock. Have a motion? Hank?
So moved.
Second, Steve, Mr. Leibman, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any contrary minded, seeing none, motion, the meeting is adjourned. Gail, would you shut this down?
Dora, short of copy.